They call this the Sand Hills area of North Carolina. Here, just north of Rockingham, lies the North Carolina Motor Speedway. It's a high-banked, D-shaped racetrack, a little over a mile in length. It's a cloudy day here today. We've had a few sprinkles of rain, but hopefully the Winston Cup Grand National cars can complete 500 miles. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Rockingham, North Carolina for the Carolina 500. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Eli Gold, set to bring you the action. A couple of things to talk about. First of all, in practice here earlier, the drivers were complaining that the track is slick, and there's still the continuing controversy about the downsizing of the race cars this year.
Well, of course, Bob, the downsizing of the cars means that 5 inches of wheelbase has been subtracted from the cars that ran this circuit last year. What it has meant, of course, is a reacquainting for the crews, the drivers, everybody concerned, of the cars to the racetracks. What happens here this week during practice and qualifying is really not so much the cars, because the cars have virtually been stable on this racetrack in Rockingham, but the track, as you said, has been slick. There's been a sealant, an asphalt sealant, placed over the racetrack to help protect the racing surface. The drivers call it bear grease, and it is really not unlike what you might use on your driveways at home. But of course, there has been a reason for it to begin to become a slick racetrack. The drivers have trouble hanging on, and of course, as the week of racing progressed, the situation did seem to fix itself up. Yesterday, a late model sportsman race run by Dave Marcus. He ran away and hit and took the checkered flag. He said afterwards the grease from the cars, the rubber from the tires, has helped the racing surface a good deal. Of course, there has been a light but persistent rain here throughout the evening and early into the morning hours today. How much that might have done to the racetrack, how green is it today, and how much of the rubber and grease from the track has been washed away after yesterday's competition? Well, I guess we can answer that very early.
492 laps around this 1.017-mile track here this afternoon. A veteran race driver who now is doing television, Ned Jarrett, is covering the activity from the pit area.
Well, thank you, Bob. And those 492 laps here at Rockingham are among the toughest in all of auto racing. About 4 hours and a half it'll take to run this race. Very grueling, both mentally and physically on the drivers. And it's also grueling for the pit crew members, and we'll be covering the pit action here today. They'll make at least a half a dozen stops, depending on the number of caution flags. They'll be changing numerous tires and, of course, filling it up with gasoline every time they come in. They can get about 4 to 4 1/4 miles to the gallon of gas on these cars, so that means it takes quite a bit to run 500 miles. We'll be reporting that action to you. Now back to you, Bob.
The Grand National cars are about to compete in the Carolina 500. We'll have the action for you in just a moment. Just about to start the Carolina 500 from Rockingham. The command has been given. The cars are underway. Here is the starting lineup, 37 cars for this race this afternoon. On the pole in car number 27, he qualified at 140.448 miles an hour, Cale Yarborough. Outside of row number 1, the controversial car driven by Bobby Allison, he qualified at 140.394. In the second row on the inside, King Richard Petty in car number 43, outside row number 2 and car number 11, Darrell Waltrip. In the third row, car 88, Ricky Rudd and Buddy Baker in car number 1. In the fourth row, car 47, Harry Gant and 21, Neil Bonnet. In row number 5, Terry Labonte in car number 44 and Benny Parsons in 15. Sixth row, Dale Earnhardt in number 2 and Slick Johnson in 53. Seventh row has Morgan Shepherd in car number 5 and Joe Milliken in 75. Eighth row, Lake Speed in number 66 and Richard Childress in number 3. In the ninth row, Dave Marcus in car number 71 along with Donnie Allison in car 12. The 10th row has J.D. McDuffie in car 70 and David Pearson in 16. In the 11th row, for this afternoon's Carolina 500, Lenny Pond in car 48 and Tim Richmond in 99. 12th row, Ronnie Thomas in 25 and Mike Alexander in 37. Row number 13, Buddy Arrington in 67 and car number 42 driven by Kyle Petty. 14th row, Rick Wilson in 62 and Indianapolis veteran Johnny Rutherford in 98. Row number 15, Jimmy Means in 52 and Bobby Wawak in 94. 16th row, Stan Barrett in 22 and Elliott Forbes Robinson in 86. In row number 17, Glenn Jarrett in car 17, along with Jody Ridley in 79. The 18th row consists of Cecil Gordon in 24 and Rick Newsom in number 20 as the cars go down the backstretch. And all alone in row number 17, car number 64, driven by Tommy Gale. That's the starting lineup for this afternoon's race. The cars are at the end of the backstretch and could get the green this time around.
1981 Mazda RX-7 pacing the field with the legendary Buck Baker at the keyboard, two-time national champion, twice the winner of the Southern 500 and one of the real pioneers of this sport.
492 laps to go here on this 1.017 mile racetrack. The turns are banked at 25 and 22 degrees. It's a demanding race. It's a grueling race. Here they come off of the fourth turn, and the green flag is out. We're underway for the Carolina 500, the Winston Cup Grand National cars. Into turn number 1. They're still running side by side, the first 2 rows. It's Yarborough on the inside, outside Bobby Allison. In row number 2, Richard Petty, and right alongside him is Darrell Waltrip in number 11. Now as the cars move through turn number 3, they begin to file into a single file order off of turn number 4. This will complete lap number 1, and it's Cale Yarborough leading, Bobby Allison running in second position, and Richard Petty in third.
The cars at this point staying low on the racetrack. The slick part we talked about earlier was upstairs in the banking of the grooves, so they're staying low on the racetrack. Cale Yarborough, a man who won both races here just 1 season ago at Rockingham, sets the pace here.
Yarborough moves that car low in turn number 3, now onto turn number 4. The track is not an oval shape, but here along the main grandstand, it's shaped like a D. There is no straightaway here in front of the grandstand. So we will be referring to no front stretch here, but rather a front straightaway. 27, Cale Yarborough now in the backstretch in turn number 3, and Richard Petty moves up to challenge for second and goes into second place. Yarborough has the lead, but now Richard Petty has moved into second position. Also a change for third position as we see Darrell Waltrip move into third. Bobby Allison drops back to fourth. It's Buddy Baker running in fifth position as we have completed 3 laps here this afternoon of this 492-lap race. Now the cars go down the backstretch, and it's still Cale Yarborough stretching out the lead just a little bit on Richard Petty. The real battle here is for second place. As you can see, Darrell Waltrip right on the back bumper of Richard Petty as they complete lap number 4. It is still Bobby Allison running in fourth position. Buddy Baker is running in fifth, and sixth now is Ricky Rudd in car number 88.
This is a kind of a race where, again, you might say to yourself, let's pace just a bit. There are 492 laps to go, and it's very grueling as far as the drivers are concerned. It is a physically demanding track. I guess in the order of races around the Winston Cup circuit, maybe the third most demanding behind that of Bristol, Tennessee, and Dover Downs International Raceway. But again, as we've seen time and time again on the Winston Cup circuit, you have to run all out and make a move as quickly as you can, because there's really no resting. And as we see the cars work their way down the back straightaway up to turns number 3 and 4, where there are 25 degrees of banking, it's still Cale Yarborough. Richard Petty still pacing himself and watching from second place. Darrell Waltrip is third.
And there were a couple of very competitive drivers that started relatively in the rear in this race. Speaking mainly of Dale Earnhardt, who started in 11th position in car number 2, and also car number 16, David Pearson, who started in 20th position. We'll be keeping our eyes on those drivers to see if they can move up through the traffic here in the early stages of this race.
David Pearson has now moved up into 14th spot, as on the back straightaway he moved inside of Lake Speed and picked off another position.
Here is Cale Yarborough completing lap number 7 here at Rockingham, North Carolina. It's still Richard Petty running in second position and Darrell Waltrip in third. There are the first 3 cars as we begin to see now some lapping here in the early stages of this race, as Cale Yarborough puts a lap already on Rick Newsom in car number 11 as the car went down the backstretch. Your first 3 positions here in the early stages of the Carolina 500. Cale Yarborough, your leader. This completes lap number 8. Running in second position is Richard Petty in car number 43 and Darrell Waltrip in car number 11. Running in fourth position continues to be Bobby Allison, but there is quite a difference between, quite a lot of racetrack between Darrell Waltrip in third position and Bobby Allison running in fourth. Buddy Baker continues to run in fifth position. Ricky Rudd is in sixth. Running in 7th position now is Neil Bonnet as they come by the front stretch here. And in 8th position would be car number 15, that of course Benny Parsons.
And moving up in the 9th spot is the Dale Earnhardt automobile. Again, he started 11th, now moves up 2 positions on the afternoon. Let's interject another factor right here, Bob, and it's something that we might be able to refer back to a bit later on this afternoon. After the cloudy start to this day, Mother Nature is now beginning to change the complexion of this racetrack just a bit. And one factor that everybody points to here at Rockingham is the actual physical layout of the racetrack. Where is it on the map of the United States and how is it pointing? And coming off the 4th turn and working down the front straightaway late in the afternoon, the drivers, should the conditions continue here, will be faced by a blinding sun should Mother Nature continue to try and burn off the haze we have seen here this morning. That, plus the factor you alluded to in the opening before, this being the Sand Hill region of North Carolina, the sandy infield and the swirling sand can begin to sandblast the automobiles as far as they're continuing through the race, the grease on the racetrack, the sand on the windshield, and so on. There you see Bobby Allison's automobile, number 28 to the left of your screen.
And right behind him is Buddy Baker, but Bobby Allison has fallen back a few positions here at the start of the race. He started, of course, in 2nd position, and now the car number 28 has fallen back to 4th behind the leader, Cale Yarborough. 2nd place belonging now to Darrell Waltrip, who has gone around Richard Petty. Petty now running in 3rd position. Your leader continues to be Cale Yarborough in the car number 27. Another thing we should talk about at this point early in the race is pit stops. Naturally, the cars will have to make many pit stops in a 500-mile race. They will, of course, wait for some yellow lights, but should we have no yellow lights, they will make approximately 5 or 6 pit stops. Here's a battle now between car number 11, car number 1 rather, driven by Buddy Baker, and the 88 of Ricky Rudd as they battle in the pack.
And neither one of those drivers, Baker or Rudd, has had the success of a victory here at the North Carolina Motor Speedway, be it in this event, the Carolina 500, or the fall event, the American 500. So those 2 cars are certainly 2 that have to be reckoned with throughout the afternoon as the field again sweeps by the start-finish line. And you see again the lead automobile there is Cale Yarborough closing in on Buddy Arrington out of Martinsville, Virginia. And after a while, the slower cars obviously to the inside, and there you see Yarborough and Waltrip, who will make a move to the outside of race traffic. The slower cars normally move inside to let the leaders go by in the safety of the outside, and almost a bid for the lead, Bob.
Now Darrell Waltrip moves to the inside here as the cars come off of the 4th turn here on the front stretch. It is Yarborough to the outside in 27. Right behind him, Darrell Waltrip in number 11. Yarborough is able to hold him off. They are continuing to lap some of the slower vehicles, a lap being put on Lenny Pond in car number 48. Now Yarborough stretches it out just a little bit as they go down the backstretch, and Darrell Waltrip settles in for 2nd position. Richard Petty continues to run in 3rd here at this time. Bobby Allison is running in 4th position, and Buddy Baker is running in 5th.
We have trouble in turn number 1 as one car goes spinning up against the wall. It's going to be Johnny Rutherford, Lone Star JR, as he spins off the banking, and the leaders now closing in on him. They'll stay low on the racetrack.
Johnny Rutherford, a veteran Indianapolis 500 competitor, driving as many NASCAR races as he can this year.
And of course, Bob, these cars will continue to race back to the start-finish line under Winston Cup Grand National rules, so they are still racing for the leadership.
And here they come off of the 4th turn. Now they will receive the yellow flag, and it's still going to be Cale Yarborough holding the lead here as the cars slow down under yellow. Johnny Rutherford yesterday in practice had a spin over in just about the same area of the racetrack that he spun just a few seconds ago. Into the pit area is Neil Bonnet for an early pit stop. Perhaps Ned Jarrett is in a location to see what's going on down there.
Come in and change the right side tire. As Bonnet came down pit road, he was pointing to the left front. They made a chassis adjustment on the car, hoping to get it to stick in the corners a little better.
Neil Bonnet back out on the racetrack now in car number 21. There is your leader, Cale Yarborough. We have completed 16 laps, and the lead has been held at this point by Cale Yarborough all the way. Darrell Waltrip, a number 11, is running in 2nd position. We are yellow, though, because of a spin involving Johnny Rutherford. While we're under yellow, we'll take this break and be back for more of the Carolina 500. And the signal has been given now that the cars will receive the green flag next time around. Let's run down the top 10 at this point. We've completed 24 laps. The leader there is Cale Yarborough in 27. Running in second position is Darrell Waltrip. Third is Richard Petty. Fourth, Bobby Allison. Fifth, Buddy Baker. Sixth is Ricky Rudd. Seventh, Benny Parsons. Eighth is Dale Earnhardt. Ninth is David Pearson, who has moved up from the 20th starting position, so he's moved up 11 spots at this point. Running in 10th is Terry Labonte. We are under the yellow at this time because of a spin involving Johnny Rutherford in the first turn. He is back out there in competition, and Neil Bonnet in car number 21 made 2 pit stops during this yellow flag situation. So we're expecting a green now as the cars come down here on the front stretch. You can see that the cars that are in contention are on the high side of the racetrack. The slower vehicles are to the inside. Here is the green flag once again, and we're back to racing.
And David Pearson makes a quick move, dashing to the inside, and he'll pick up a couple of spots on the restart.
Well, Pearson started, as we indicated, in 20th position here this afternoon. The cars motor down the backstretch. It's a 4-car or 5-car race at this point, with Cale Yarborough leading the way as they come off of the 4th turn onto the front stretch here. Cale Yarborough.
A great speed shot as we see the cars rifling themselves off turn number 4. We're also watching, while you see the leaders, the progression of Neil Bonnet, who has made his way rather markedly from the rear of the pack after those 2 pit stops now to the middle of the pack, and he is still on the move in the Purelator number 21. There you see the lead battle. Cale Yarborough showing the way to Darrell Waltrip as they work turns 3 and 4.
Neil Bonnet in for a change of rubber on all 4 tires, so he is in good shape at this point in that respect, and also, of course, the car filled full of gasoline. Cale Yarborough, your leader. Dale Waltrip running in second position, and Richard Petty is running third in car number 43. Here's a good shot down the backstretch. As you can see, the interval there between the first, second, and third cars, only about a car length between each of them. We've completed 27 laps here with the Carolina 500.
Handling so much a factor here in Rockingham, but so too is the driver expertise, and much has got to be talked about. Cale Yarborough had a good car last year while driving, of course, for the Junior Johnson team. Likewise this year, pacing the field for the MC Anderson stables. But you must remember, Cale Yarborough, that man who you see as the current leader, has the victory both races here last year, and of course Cale Yarborough overall with 6 victories here at Rockingham. So he knows a way around this racetrack, and as we mentioned at the start of this broadcast, if you do a lot of things right, you're bound to win. It is a survival of the fittest, and you have to have a driver who knows his way around this racetrack.
Average speed of the race unofficially at this point is just over 135 miles an hour, slowed, of course, by that yellow that came out when Johnny Rutherford lost control out in turn number 1. Rutherford, however, is still out there in competition. There are your first 4 cars here as they come off again turn number 4. They're turning the track here this afternoon at about 26 seconds. The pole speed was 26.068 seconds, 140.448 by Cale Yarborough, who is the leader at this point. The 17th position at this point is car number 21, Neil Bonnet, the gentleman we talked about just a few minutes ago. He came in for 2 pit stops during that most recent yellow, but is now trying to move up back through the field. He's going around Lenny Pond on the backstretch.
Neil Bonnet, the Purelator T-Bird, rather, out of Hueytown, Alabama, and of course the Wood brothers out of Stewart, Virginia. You talk about Neil Bonnet, you're talking about a man who again has not picked up a victory here at this racetrack, but as he closes in on Glenn Jarrett, the son of pit correspondent Ned Jarrett, you see Neil Bonnet, after a fine qualifying time, working his way back up after a 4-tire pit stop.
And Neil Bonnet, of course, one of the most well-liked drivers on the NASCAR Grand National Circuit. The leader continues to be Cale Yarborough in car number 27. No change in the first 4 positions. It's still Darrell Waltrip running in second. Richard Petty is now running in third position, and Bobby Allison in 28 runs fourth. In fifth, continuing to be Buddy Baker in that red number 1 car, an Oldsmobile.
You see the panoramic view here at Rockingham, North Carolina, and what is a jam-packed racing facility here this afternoon. And everybody's seeing a dandy battle. There it is for the lead as Cale Yarborough and Darrell Waltrip still work their way earlier around traffic, now with some clear sailing off the banking of turn number 2 and down the back straightaway.
And just a little bit of distance now between the second place Waltrip car and the Richard Petty car. So the first two positions, Yarborough and Waltrip running right together on the racetrack. Then a little bit of distance before we pick up the third place car of Richard Petty and the fourth place car of Bobby Allison. The race was delayed about 10 minutes here this afternoon because of a traffic jam. Well over 40,000 people are gathered here in Rockingham, North Carolina for this Carolina 500-mile race.
There's something about this race. You look back in the record books over the years, and never has a race here been halted short of the expected 500 miles. They've always managed to get the events here in Rockingham, and of course, a great racing facility. The people who come here have really been used to some outstanding racing, again, because of the quality of the racetrack. The Speedway itself is not a forgiving racetrack, such as at Michigan, for instance, where the track is wide enough, so should there be a problem, one can correct itself. You only see exciting racing here at Rockingham, and again, this jam-packed house is testimony to that.
We had indicated that we had a few sprinkles early in the morning here, but now the sky is beginning to clear away. There's a lot of breaks in the clouds, and we see the sunshine occasionally. Let's hope that we can complete this entire distance here this afternoon. Here are your first two cars continuing to move through traffic here at Rockingham. It is Darrell Waltrip now moving right up on the back bumper of Cale Yarborough as the cars streak down the backstretch. A lap being put on car number 24, driven by Cecil Gordon. Around him nicely now into turn number 3. You can see they use the lower groove in turns 3 and 4, then come off high at turn number 4 and onto the front stretch here, passing under the start-finish line and in front of the grandstand, the main grandstand here just below us. There is, of course, other grandstands on the back straightaway. Cale Yarborough and Darrell Waltrip 1-2 at the conclusion of 27 laps. Make that 37 laps.
When you talk about the racetrack here, as many racetracks you see around the Winston Cup circuit, you alluded to the cars as we see right there, barring the instance when you have to go around traffic, as Waltrip there goes around Tommy Gale. You see the groove, though, the racing groove, move up the racetrack throughout the afternoon. And of course, when you talk about 492 laps here today, it is still quite early when we're 38 laps and change into the event. But again, there are so many stories that will be developing throughout this afternoon. The complexion of the cars. You talk, as you and I talked over dinner last night, Bob, the fact that it's almost remarkable to think that a piece of machinery as complex as this, forget the extreme maneuverability and all that has to go in. It's amazing that there aren't more attrition rate factors than you see in a 500-mile race, and that right there, a great knock for the crew chiefs, the builders, those guys who oftentimes don't get as many of the headlines and the highlights as others would think they should, have really taken the back seat but done the job and made sure that these cars are competitive and are built to withstand what is at best a 4.5-hour event here at Rockingham.
Well, looking over the event here last year, the Carolina 500, I believe I counted 17 cars out of 38 that finished this race. So there isn't all that much attrition here at this particular racetrack, although it is a very demanding one and very grueling for the drivers. Well, we've completed now 40 laps, and Cale Yarborough continues to lead here with Darrell Waltrip running in second position, and Richard Petty in third, Bobby Allison fourth, Buddy Baker running in fifth position. Last year, Cale Yarborough won this event. Richard Petty finished in second position, about 3 seconds behind Yarborough. Dale Earnhardt finished in third. Darrell Waltrip was fourth. Donnie Allison fifth. Neil Bonnet sixth. Bobby Allison seventh. Harry Gant finished in 8th position, Dave Marcus 9th, and Terry Labonte finished in 10th position a year ago. Well, we have a battle shaping up here for 6th, 7th, and 8th positions. As we watch the cars come down through here, it involves Ricky Rudd, also car number 16, driven by David Pearson, and the defending Winston Cup champion, Dale Earnhardt.
You talk about those drivers, of course, you've got the younger breed, the defending champion and a youngster, Dale Earnhardt, Ricky Rudd, who has an outstanding situation. And as you see them lined up right there with Rudd leading Pearson, with Earnhardt running right behind him, you see them trying to dice for positions. This is 6th, 7th, and 8th on the line right now, and you've got the cunning of a David Pearson. What is he going to do? Rest assured he is not going to show his full hand 43 or 44 laps into a 492 lap event. Yet it is enough to kind of test the other drivers, and even at this early stage, let him know that he's there. Ricky Rudd, maybe not a dark horse. Give him good equipment, and he has shown so very well. He qualified second at Charlotte last year under the watchful eyes of many, many surprised observers at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And of course, we've all seen what Earnhardt and David Pearson have done. So those three are going to watch themselves and watch everybody else, and it's going to be a fine battle throughout the afternoon.
Well, you grow so accustomed to seeing the cars through the years. Number 88 for many years, driven, of course, by Darrell Waltrip, but Ricky Rudd taking over that ride here this year and doing a fine job, at least at this point, in the Carolina 500. The leader continues to be Cale Yarborough. There he is in turn number 1, going around a slower car, Dave Marcus in number 71. Yarborough leading at this point at the conclusion of 44 laps. As we mentioned a few minutes ago, the defending national champion in this division, the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, is Dale Earnhardt. And Earnhardt was a very consistent runner last year on the circuit. His hometown is in Kannapolis, North Carolina. He is single and was born in 1951. He'll be 30 years of age in just a few days, as a matter of fact.
There we see Cale Yarborough, and again the jousting continues. Ricky Rudd being passed by both David Pearson and Dale Earnhardt as that battle for 6th, 7th, and 8th continues out of our screen right now. Let's throw another factor into that. We'll see David Pearson. You'll see Dale Earnhardt right there behind him in the Wrangler jeans machine. You see Ricky Rudd. Those three guys, all Rookie of the Years in their respective first seasons on the Winston Cup Tour. 77 for Ricky Rudd. Back in 1960, it was David Pearson driving the number 16. He was Rookie of the Year. And back in 1979, Dale Earnhardt was the Rookie of the Year. So that is a story of guys who have taken their first year's experience and have really built it into some outstanding careers. And that's another race within this race that we'll be talking about, Bob, this afternoon, because as we look at the field, you have got 7 Champion Spark Plug Rookie of the Year candidates entered in today's Carolina 500 with that prestigious award, at least the battle for that prestigious award, currently being led by Tim Richmond, who has a 4-point bulge over Elliott Forbes Robinson. And of course, for the folks who are aficionados of racing, you see Tim Richmond as a former Rookie of the Year at Indianapolis.
And a good battle for second place shaping up here between Richard Petty and Darrell Waltrip, and it's going to be Richard Petty moving into second position now. Waltrip will move back into third, and a nice pass here on the front stretch as Richard Petty managed to get around Darrell Waltrip.
You see the battle there with Dale Earnhardt and David Pearson as they work their way through turns number 3 and 4. And Earnhardt, that number 2 Wrangler jeans machine, showing the spot over David Pearson. And of course, that battle for second and third place that we were talking about before. Richard Petty trying to and eventually close in and around Dale Earnhardt. So your leader continues to be Cale Yarborough. Waltrip going second. Richard Petty was showing as your third place automobile.
And here are the second, third, and fourth place cars now, as Richard Petty has gone around Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip in third position, and also right in the battle is car number 28, driven by Bobby Allison. Allison moves to the inside of Waltrip, tries to get around, cannot do it. Waltrip to the inside, rather Waltrip to the outside of Bobby Allison, but Allison will have to settle back into fourth position.
Again, you see coming up on race traffic there, that was Elliott Forbes Robinson in the number 86 car, currently second in the Rookie of the Year chase, and Bobby Allison had to tuck himself in. And we talked before about Bobby Allison, but I guess for the folks who have a sentimental spot or are archivists as far as the kind of cars that we've seen campaign, this of course the last race for the Pontiac Le Mans in the current configuration that we see right now, because there'll be some vast changes made, especially on the rear spoiler, which will be cut down almost in half in time for the next super speedway race in Atlanta.
This is your leader, Cale Yarborough, coming by here, completing lap number 52. Yarborough in first position. Running second is Richard Petty. Now running in third position is Bobby Allison at 28. He has gotten around Darrell Waltrip in number 11. Waltrip is showing as the fourth place car now, and still in fifth is Buddy Baker. Running in sixth position would be Dale Earnhardt, and seventh, I believe, would be number 16, David Pearson. Again, 52 laps have been completed there. There is the conclusion of lap number 53, with Yarborough continuing to show the way.
We saw there earlier that last graphic we were shown about Cale Yarborough and his fine qualifying speed in this event last year. Not to be confused with the fact that Darrell Waltrip sat on the pole. Cale Yarborough's outstanding qualifying run came on the second day of qualifying, where of course whoever does what on that second day cannot start ahead of the first 20 who qualify on the first day of racing. So Cale Yarborough last year, 1:39.905 qualifying, couldn't do better than a 21st starting position because it came on the second day of qualification.
We're watching out on the racetrack while we watch here on the screen Cale Yarborough, the progress of Neil Bonnet in 21. Neil, as we indicated earlier, made 2 pit stops during our first yellow flag situation, a spin by Johnny Rutherford, and he is moving up nicely now through traffic. Yarborough continues to lead here as we've concluded 55 laps, and the average speed of the race is now shown as right around 113 miles an hour. We talked about the Rookie of the Year a little bit earlier, and the defending Rookie of the Year is Jody Ridley, who took home the honors last year. Ridley starting this afternoon in car number 79, and as you indicated, there are 7 candidates for Rookie of the Year on the Winston Grand National Series this year.
And of course, the champion Sparkplug Corporation sponsoring the Rookie of the Year Challenge, won by Jody Ridley last year. And when you talk about rookies, people oftentimes envision a man of 20 or 21 or 22 years of age. And of course, when you take a look at what goes on this year, it can really be anything but the truth. You've got guys battling for Rookie of the Year honors at 38, 37, 36 years old. And of course, Jody Ridley last year was 38 years old upon winning the Rookie of the Year campaign. So these are guys who are rookies as far as the Winston Cup Grand National Tour is concerned, but in no way are they strangers to a racing facility.
Cale Yarborough is your leader here in car number 27. We have a battle for 5th position shaping up here between Buddy Baker and Dale Earnhardt. Baker with the advantage right now in the red car number 1. That is an Oldsmobile, and Earnhardt in the number 2 Pontiac. Here they are off of the 4th turn onto this front stretch here. This is the battle for 5th position between Buddy Baker and Dale Earnhardt in the car number 2.
Now you talk about some hard chargers right there. Dale Earnhardt, of course, has been known to use up every inch of real estate available to him, and Buddy Baker, he's the kind of a guy who will not give anybody an inch either. So 2 guys who are really suited for one another. They're going to be out there and do an outstanding battle as we see Baker still leading Earnhardt.
59 laps have been completed here. Buddy Baker is running in 5th position with Dale Earnhardt in 6th. In front of them, your leader continues to be Cale Yarborough, Richard Petty in 2nd, Bobby Allison 3rd, 4th place Darrell Waltrip, and then the number 1 of Buddy Baker. Another lap car there being passed on the main stretch here as they go into turn number 1. Only 1 yellow flag at this point, and that would be the spin by Johnny Rutherford.
Pretty good battle for the lead right there as Richard Petty makes a bid on Cale Yarborough downstairs, and Cale shuts the door on Richard Petty. But now midway down the backstretch past the Winston scoreboard, that's the battle for the lead. Up the 25-degree bankings of turn 3 and 4, Yarborough comes barreling in on Kyle Petty, the son, of course, of Richard Petty, as that battle for the lead tries to split through 2 slower cars. Rick Wilson going to the inside, and Kyle Petty giving some room likewise.
Richard Petty, of course, the victor of the Daytona 500 earlier this year, his 7th win at Daytona. He, of course, the all-time leader as far as victories are concerned in NASCAR. Right now, he's running behind Cale Yarborough, and the distance between the 2 cars now stretches out just a little. A few laps ago, Petty was on the bumper of Cale Yarborough, but now a little bit of distance between Yarborough and Petty. So Yarborough, Petty running 1 and 2 with Bobby Allison shown in 3rd position, and now Darrell Waltrip running in 4th.
And that battle for 5th place we saw earlier has stabilized just a bit as Baker now will begin to feel the heat of Earnhardt exiting turn number 2. Earnhardt tried to make a move to the inside, but you see some race traffic. There's Baker in the number 1 and the Wrangler jeans machine of Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt made a bid for that 5th position coming off turn number 2, but found himself in a gaggle of race traffic coming off the turn, and he had to tuck back in for some relative security. One car spins on the back straightaway and comes to rest up against the inside retaining wall as your leaders, Yarborough and Richard Petty, go by the Skull Bandit of Stan Barrett. Stan Barrett, the record holder for the world land speed record, spins coming off turn number 2 just in front of your leaders, but they got by okay.
And again, they will race to the checker, the yellow flag here. And the leaders now see the checkered flag and the yellow flag and slow down just a little as we're under yellow for the 2nd time. Stan Barrett losing it coming out of turn number 2. We see some scuff marks on the retaining wall out there in turn number 2. I'm not sure if those are his or not, but I'm pretty sure that he did come in contact with the retaining wall. There is Stan Barrett climbing out of his wrecked race car, which has come to a rest on the inside, and Barrett will undoubtedly be through for the afternoon.
This is, of course, a situation where that is along the back pit area. The drivers are pitting on both sides of the super speedway here at Rockingham. That the back pit 24 automobile there was Cecil Gordon's car. And Stan Barrett coming away. It was a wild ride for Stan Barrett. Not all that dissimilar to that last lap, last turn in Daytona. There you see him, as you alluded to, the scuff marks on the retaining wall. The car goes to the wall, buys it, and then careens right across. And there you see, right sweeping across the turn came Cale Yarborough, Richard Petty, and Bobby Allison. So Stan Barrett just did manage to scoot away, and now on pit road, Bob Jenkins, I know Ned Jarrett is there as we see Stan Barrett. It is feeding time at the zoo because many of the leaders, all of the leaders coming in.
Well, as you indicated, a lot of pit stop activity here. And Ned, what have you been able to observe down there during this flurry of pit stops?
Everybody taking advantage of this caution period to come in. Most of the front runners are changing 4 tires, as we see Benny Parsons right now changing all 4 tires on his car. Neil Bonney was in, changed all 4 tires once again, and those that did not stop the last time around are coming in this time.
We're under yellow with 66 laps completed. Here is Richard Petty now in car number 43 making a pit stop and changing rubber on the left side of that car.
This, of course, somewhat of a sentimental day for that Petty team. This the final day that crew will be under the baton, if you will, of Dale Inman, cousin to the Richard Petty clan. Inman, of course, leaving following this event to move on as the director of racing operations for the Osterman racing team. So Richard Petty gone away, and I guess we can ask Ned Jarrett, because he has spent so much time in a sport that maybe to the casual observer seems kind of impersonal. But in a day like this, when the Inman-Petty family affair will be coming to an end after 23 years, Ned, I'm sure there's a good bit of emotion down there.
Richard Petty out of the pit area now on the back stretch as Buddy Baker pits in car number 1. So all of the leaders in here for pit stop activity on the 67th lap. Our second yellow light of the afternoon, yellow flag situation. And it involves a contact with the wall by Stan Barrett out in turn number 2. Stan Barrett is okay. We'll be back with more racing activity at the Carolina 500 in a moment. Still under yellow here at the Carolina 500. Let's go down to the pit area.
Well, everybody has taken advantage of this caution period to come in for a tire change and any adjustments that they might need. It seems that the cars are handling better than most of the people expected here in the early stages of this event. But making pit stops under the caution is much better than having to make them under the green. So they take this opportunity to come in, make those adjustments that they need, and get back ready for the running.
It's a situation where if we have a yellow flag situation, the cars can come in for really 2 pit stops and change rubber on both sides of the car and not lose any distance.
That's true, but of course, it's tough on the pit crews, and of course when they have to do it on the green, but it is just marvelous being able to watch the high-speed ballet that we've seen, and of course in the pits where it all happens, Ned Jarrett.
We're standing by with Stan Barrett. Stan, what happened over there?
Somebody moved that wall.
Did you move it closer to you?
Yeah, it sure did. I just came over there and lost it. It just felt like something gave way and I hit the wall.
You're okay, though?
Yeah, I'm fine.
How about the car?
I'm in better shape than the car is.
Well, Stan, we're sorry to see you out of it, but we're happy to see you at least smiling.
Thank you. It was going to be a good race. Kind of fun out there. It's pretty slick out there, though. Yeah, but the car had been handling really well. I'd get a little loose going into the turn and halfway through it, but never coming off. As I was coming out of the turn, boy, I just gave way and away I went.
Well, here's a fellow that's traveled 739 miles an hour, but he had a little problem here at Rockingham today.
Heavy contact with the outside retaining wall in turn number 2, but Stan Barrett is okay. Stan from Bishop, California, driving the Skoal Bandit Pontiac here at the Carolina 500. Qualified this afternoon at 135.304, good enough for 31st starting position, but he's out of the competition at this point.
And of course, Stan Barrett was currently showing in 6th spot as far as the champion Sparkplug Rookie of the Year is concerned. He was sandwiched in between Glenn Jarrett and Ronnie Sanders. Sanders not on this event today, so a tough break for that race within a race as far as Stan Barrett is concerned. And now the field getting the 1 to go indication, as you see right there, the number 88 car tucked in behind that Mazda RX-7 pace car. That, of course, Ricky Rudd, as they work to the high side of the number 24 of Cecil Gordon. Again, in this instance, a double file restart. The faster cars to the high side. The slower cars are the left automobiles to the inside. And right behind Ricky Rudd, there's a man who we saw at the tail end of the pack just at this same situation a few laps ago. Neil Bonnet in the Wood Brothers Purelator automobile, and Harry Gant, the Race Hill Farms entry number 47, is tucked right in behind Neil. So some new faces now beginning to rear themselves as we get set for a restart here at Rockingham.
The two abreast formation as the cars come down the backstretch. This is something that we have not seen on our previous ESPN auto racing telecasts, a two abreast start after a yellow flag situation. In the other races that we have seen, they must start single file, but this is a good idea. The faster cars, those in contention, move to the outside of the racetrack, the slower cars to the inside. When that green comes out, the faster cars have clear sailing in front of them. And the green flag is out once again. We're back to racing here at the Carolina 500 with Ricky Rudd in car number 88 showing the way over car number 21 driven by Neil Bonnet.
Donnie Allison had tried to stick the nose of his number 12 in there, and he settles right now for fourth running order as Bonnet tries to make a bid for the lead, but couldn't quite do it there as we saw Neil just peek to the inside. Now again he does, trying to take a bit of a lower line through turns 3 and 4. Then does Ricky Rudd. And as Neil Bonnet now peels back into second place, he'll hold down in that second running order. Harry Gant is third, Donnie Allison fourth. Going fifth is going to be the Benny Parsons automobile. They're back in turn 2.
So a change of positions here and during the most recent yellow flag situation as Darrell Waltrip has dropped back now along with Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough, the three drivers who challenged for the lead early. Now the races for first position between Ricky Rudd in number 88 and Neil Bonnet in 21. Down in front of the main grandstand here, it is still Ricky Rudd showing the way with Bonnet tucked in second position. We've completed 73 laps of this over 400 lap race, 500 miles on this 1.017 mile racetrack.
Now as we get the update, Bob Jenkins from NASCAR Timing and Scoring, it is number 15, the Melling Tool car of Benny Parsons, that is being shown officially as the leader. Those cars, the two right there, and the three, or at least the two immediately behind, that's the Harry Gant and Donnie Allison car, are on the tail end of the lead lap. So there you have Ricky Rudd and Neil Bonnet, the tail end of the lead lap. Likewise, Harry Gant, and the leader currently showing is a man out of Ellerby, North Carolina. So says NASCAR Timing and Scoring, that being Benny Parsons.
Well, once again, it's very difficult to keep them straight because there are so many cars on the racetrack, and when we do have yellow flag situations and a lot of pit stops are made, it's very difficult to determine who is actually in the lead. And although a car may be running at the front of the pack, as is the case here with Ricky Rudd and Neil Bonnet, both of those cars are not in contention for the lead at this point, but rather the car that is running fifth in the pack at this time, the car number 15 driven by Benny Parsons.
Of course, oftentimes, as you said, on a restart, the field gets shuffled up. And the board right now, the scoreboard, shows Cale Yarborough as the leader. So obviously the Timing and Scoring folks rechecking their computations. I will have an official update for you in that just a moment, though the original word on the restart we received was that Benny Parsons had taken advantage of the lead. In any event, an outstanding battle between two of the younger breed. There's Neil Bonnet sweeping to the inside of Ricky Rudd. Rudd campaigning those Gatorade colors as off the turn. It's going to be Neil Bonnet taking it downstairs and picks up a position from Ricky Rudd.
As the sun comes out here at Rockingham, North Carolina, it is Neil Bonnet going around Ricky Rudd, and now both of those cars moving up on some slower vehicles in turn number 3. A bold move there by Neil Bonnet, passing as he went into turn number 1. It appeared to me as he came off of turn number 4, the car got just a little bit squirrely, the back end around just a little. Nevertheless, he was able to get around Ricky Rudd. The car number 27, driven by Cale Yarborough, is being shown at this time on the scoreboard as the leader. Yarborough leading at this point, apparently. Car number 11 is running in second position. That is Darrell Waltrip. In third would be car number 28, driven by Bobby Allison. Fourth is car number 2, Dale Earnhardt. And fifth, Richard Petty in car number 43. Those are the standings that are being given to us by Timing and Scoring from NASCAR. 79 laps completed. The average speed of the race at this point, slowed by 2 yellow flag situations, 116.5 miles an hour.
There you see Cale Yarborough, Darrell Waltrip in the 11 right behind him. Those cars sweeping past some race traffic, and for the moment here, they've got themselves some sailing. Benny Parsons in the 15 dead ahead. You got a brief glimpse of the black and bronze, number 12 of Donnie Allison. Donnie Allison, of course, along with Bobby Allison, and Neil Bonnet making up the membership in the famed Alabama gang. Not to take away anything from Jimmy Means out of Huntsville, Alabama, but those three, the two Allisons and Bonnet, of course, neighbors in Hueytown, Alabama, with Bobby Allison, the leader of the Alabama gang.
Here they are off of turn number 4, and Cale Yarborough continues to maintain the lead here, has 2 cars in front of him. There's 2 cars in front of him side by side as they went into turn number 1. Now perhaps he'll be able to pick them off as he goes down the backstretch. Right behind him is Darrell Waltrip in number 11. Now Yarborough able to get around one of those slower cars in turn number 3. Sets his sights on the other slower car in front of him. Also, Darrell Waltrip is going to be able to get around that slower car as they come by the front stretch here. Cale Yarborough shown as your leader. Second, Waltrip. Third is Bobby Allison.
We're watching some outstanding racing as well for the 6th and 7th positions as David Pearson, remember, he started in 20th, has moved up awfully well, and now he and Buddy Baker have their hands full. But as you see the field now deploying itself up the banking, 25 degrees high off the banking of turns number 3 and 4. Liken that to some of the other racetracks where you see some of the smaller banking lower at that than Pocono or Charlotte or Michigan. And of course the 31 degree and 33 degree banking of the Alabama International Motor Speedway, and of course Daytona at 31, and 36 degrees at the Bristol International Raceway. So these drivers throughout the year throw in a road course event or two in Riverside, and these guys, you see, indeed have to be the well-rounded drivers to wrestle these 3,700-pound cars to do exactly what needs to be done in a particular situation.
The first 4 cars are running relatively close to each other on the racetrack, that being Yarborough, Waltrip, Allison, and Richard Petty. Those 4 cars running now down the backstretch are in certainly contention for the lead, each of them. 83 laps completed here at Rockingham, North Carolina in the Carolina 500. 2 veteran Indianapolis 500 competitors, at least 1 veteran Indy 500 competitor, Johnny Rutherford, in competition with the NASCAR boys here in North Carolina this afternoon. Rutherford brought out our first yellow light earlier when he lost control over in turn number 1. The other Indy 500 driver is Tim Richmond, who is also driving as many NASCAR races as he possibly can this year. Tim Richmond driving car number 99 here this afternoon, started in 23rd position and is still out there in competition. He, of course, the Rookie of the Year at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway last year, and did exceptionally well in the car that he was driving. In fact, turned the fastest unofficial lap of the month at Indy last May.
Talking about Indianapolis and talking about some Ironman driving, how about Donnie Allison? Another Rookie of the Year in Indianapolis back in 1970. Those 500 grueling miles at the Brickyard, and then shows up the next day at the Charlotte Motor Speedway and wins NASCAR's World 600. So you talk about a man, Rookie of the Year one day in Indianapolis, wins the World 600 the next day, Donnie Allison.
Let's run down the standings now. Cale Yarborough in 27 is shown as your leader. Darrell Waltrip running in 2nd position. Bobby Allison is 3rd. Running in 4th, Dale Earnhardt. 5th is Richard Petty. 6th is Buddy Baker. 7th is Terry Labonte. 8th is car number 16, David Pearson. 9th would be car number 66, driven by Lake Speed. And 10th, car number 75, Joe Milliken. Those are the unofficial standings given to us by NASCAR Timing and Scoring. 87 laps completed here as Cale Yarborough once again sets that car into turn number 3. Moves to the outside now to go around a slower car as he comes off of the 4th turn onto the front stretch here, putting a lap on car number 52, driven by Jimmy Smut Means.
And of course at this point, as you see Yarborough there working around some race traffic, ahead of him are a couple of cars who are going to try their darndest to remain currently on the lead lap. And those will be the automobiles of Ricky Rudd and Harry Gant. So those 2 cars who have hooked themselves up together are trying to stay ahead of Cale Yarborough. And this track, as you see Yarborough there come barreling in on the Levi Garrett automobile of Johnny Rutherford, this track is deceptive in the respect that you would look at it and not feel the draft would have that much of a factor. But it is, as we see the battle there for 2nd place. It's going to be Darrell Waltrip in the number 11, Bobby Allison the 28, Richard Petty the 43. 3 veteran race car drivers right there, and there high side goes Waltrip, opens the door for Bobby Allison, and now it shuts again on Richard Petty, though he's trying to snake his way through. But that's all you need. Open the door for Bobby Allison, and it's history. He'll pick up a position on you.
And good racing here for second position, as there are 4 cars battling now for that position. We indicated earlier they were all running in relatively close formation. Now they're right on each other's bumper. Bobby Allison has now moved into third position, with Richard Petty running in fourth. Running in fifth position as they come off of the fourth turn would be the number 11 of Darrell Waltrip, and Dale Earnhardt now makes a move and goes around Waltrip, so it is Dale Earnhardt moving up another position, and Earnhardt doing a fine job here in the early stages as we're nearing the completion of 1/4 of this race.
And of course, we talk about the fact of the margin on the racetrack beginning to narrow. Well, indeed, at this point, you have Bobby Allison and Richard Petty hooked up in a 2-car draft, and the gap between themselves and the leader, Cale Yarborough, is beginning to narrow. There you see the draft we were talking about. Benny Parsons is the 15 automobile, but there are Allison and Petty, and there's Yarborough. And as Cale goes around Rick Newsom, he can look in the rearview mirror. He sees the gap between himself and that second place battle beginning to narrow.
There is the battle for second place involving Bobby Allison and Richard Petty as the cars come off of turn number 4 here and flash by us, completing lap number 93. The battle for second involving Bobby Allison in 28 and Richard Petty in 43.
The other car there, of course, Benny Parsons, now showing us 1 lap down.
That's the controversial car there in the middle of your screen. The number 28 has caused all the commotion. Notice the slant on that back window, and that's the thing that many of the drivers feel is unfair to them. It gives him better aerodynamics, and that car will have to be changed by the next Grand National event.
This, of course, not coming all that far on the heels of the action at Daytona. And there you see Richard Petty and Bobby Allison, Benny Parsons as well. And you can harken back just a couple of weeks ago when the names of Allison and Richard Petty were so prominent at the beach, as they say, the Daytona International Motor Speedway. It was outstanding. All the experts, of course, say Bobby Allison clearly the dominant force in that race. And really, Bobby did very little to dispel any of those pre-race expectations. Yet, of course, as history has proven, it was a shrewd move in the Petty pits. Dale Inman and Morris Petty calling for a gasoline stop only, no tires, and Richard Petty went ahead to take the victory in the Daytona 500. But those cars, plus you see Benny Parsons, who now is relegated to a position behind Allison and Petty, all bringing back some pretty good memories of some outstanding racing, as you've always seen at Daytona.
This is the battle for second position in the Carolina 500. Bobby Allison holds second at this point, but Richard Petty is right there challenging for that position. And they have now moved up on the lead car, Cale Yarborough, as Yarborough moves to the outside in turn number 3 and goes around the number 94, driven by Bob Wawak. So the first 3 cars now are nose to tail.
Cale had a bit of a problem, that being he had nobody off which he could draft. And a 2-car draft, as we said, will usually, in most instances, track down a car running by its lonesome. And even though this racetrack at first look does not lend itself, at least visually, for one to say, well, the draft is going to be a very major factor here. Well, indeed it is. It is not, of course, a backstretch of 3,400 feet as you'd see at Talladega, but it is big enough to get the job done. And the draft has really become a factor here this afternoon. Sweeping across the start-finish line as you look momentarily from the infield side and now from the grandstand side, you see Tim Richmond in the pits in the Uno, number 99. As we said before, former Indianapolis Rookie of the Year, Tim Richmond, as your leaders work themselves down the back straightaway into turn number 3. Yarborough now has taken advantage of some race traffic to put about 4 or 5 car lengths between himself and Bobby Allison, and Bobby has pulled another 5 or 6 ahead of Richard Petty as they work towards turn 1.
And let us not forget the 4th place car at this point, Dale Earnhardt, who is also right in the thick of things. There is Cale Yarborough, your leader here. Tim Richmond is back out on the racetrack. Tim, a nice young man from Ashland, Ohio, who is trying to gain some experience on the highest bank super speedways of NASCAR.
And you talk about Tim Richmond, Bob. He won the ARCA 200 race at the Daytona Speedway just a couple of short weeks ago in a car that was driven last year on the Grand National circuit by Buddy Baker. That was the Haas Ellington prepared ride. And of course, Tim Richmond went ahead and really made a mockery of the field because he is a confident driver. He can get around the high banks well. He can get around the short tracks well. And he is obviously, with the equipment as he has on this circuit and as he had at the ARCA race in Daytona, a man who has to be reckoned with for seasons to come. He is currently showing as the leader in the Champion Spark Plug Rookie of the Year battle.
1/4 or a little more than 1/4 of the race is completed now, and this is the battle for the lead. It involves the number 27 driven by Cale Yarborough and the number 28 driven by Bobby Allison. This is the way they started here this afternoon, with Yarborough on the pole in first starting position, Bobby Allison alongside. They're still running in that position at this point. Cale Yarborough is running in first position. Richard Petty now moves up to challenge, and here on the main straightaway, a lot of traffic, and we see Allison going to the inside right alongside Yarborough. Let's watch them as they go through turn number 2. It is going to be Bobby Allison taking the lead away from Cale Yarborough down the backstretch.
And using Tim Richmond, Slick Johnson, and J.D. McDuffie as a pick, if we can use a basketball term. It was an open door there for Bobby Allison, and as we saw earlier, when Darrell Waltrip went a bit high in the racetrack and Allison pounced on the opportunity, he used Slick Johnson so very well, a driver who was among the leading rookie campaigners last year, entering his first race of this 1981 Winston Cup campaign, but using the pick so very nicely. Bobby Allison, your leader, but again, there's Cale Yarborough right behind as they go past Tommy Gale of North Huntington, Pennsylvania. So those two cars right there are going to be waging quite a battle as we are now 101 laps into 492 here this afternoon.
And Richard Petty there in car number 43 is still right also in the thick of the race as he settles back into third position, watching the two leaders in front of him. You know, as we have talked with these drivers throughout the weekend, I think it would be a very satisfying victory for Bobby Allison here this afternoon. As you can well imagine, he is not real pleased that the ruling has come down that that car configuration must be changed. He thinks he will be at a definite disadvantage when the car has to be changed for the next race. He would like to put a victory under his belt here this afternoon before the configuration is altered. Bobby Allison, your leader, as the cars go down the backstretch here, with number 27, Cale Yarborough, running in second place. Richard Petty is shown as third. Running in fourth is Dale Earnhardt, and fifth, the car number 11 of Darrell Waltrip. This completes lap number 106.
And as we work our way now through 106 laps, we have already seen 6 official lead changes now, with Bobby Allison showing the way. Of course, your leaders to this point, Benny Parsons, Cale Yarborough has led, now Bobby Allison. Terry Labonte showed as a leader for a short while. Likewise, Joe Milliken and Ricky Rudd. So now as we work our way towards lap 107, it is your 6th leader of the afternoon out of Hueytown, Bobby Allison.
Allison puts another lap on Lenny Pond in car number 48. As Allison now moves into turn number 1, uses the low side of the racetrack, and he's stretched out the advantage now just a little over Cale Yarborough. Bobby Allison in the Turplon car number 28, a black and silver automobile, showed as the leader here at the end of 107 laps.
The record here as far as the speediest 500 miles at the North Carolina Motor Speedway is held by our current leader, Bobby Allison. Back in 1979 in this very event, he toured at 121 and change, 121.792 for the 500 miles. At this point, as we sit 114.5 miles per hour on the average, still a bit shy of the existing record, but again, very early in the event here this afternoon. We've already had 2 caution flags. If you're just joining us along the way, Johnny Rutherford spinning off turns number 1 and 2 on the 15th lap, and then Stan Barrett spinning off the second turn on lap 65.
Here are the first 3 cars: Allison, Yarborough, and Richard Petty, running in that order down the backstretch. There are 2 500-mile races that are held here each year. The Carolina 500 today. Later in the year, they will run the American 500 here. As we mentioned, the defending champion of this race is Cale Yarborough, who started from the pole position last year and went on to win in the American 500 last year. Yarborough also the winner. In 1979, the winner of this race was Bobby Allison, and in 78, the winner was David Pearson. So we have 5 former champions in the competition here this afternoon, and one of them, Cale Yarborough, has gotten around Bobby Allison once again and is leading as they come by us here to conclude lap number 110. It is Cale Yarborough now in the lead, with Allison running in second position and Richard Petty third.
One retiree just seconds earlier, and it's breaking up part of the Alabama gang as Donnie Allison had less than, I'm sure, a satisfying qualifying run. He started the event 18th, while Donnie and the 5 Racers Corporation Oldsmobile has just turned left onto the garage area, and at least for this moment, until a further word, out of the race.
Yarborough with about a 1 car length advantage on Bobby Allison, then about a 4 or 5 car length advantage over Richard Petty. So really the battle is for first position between Yarborough and Allison. Cars go around a slower vehicle on the racetrack, that number 94 driven by Bobby Wawak. Now in turn number 3, again they use the low groove in turn number 3 and come up high. The car drifts toward the outside of the racetrack up near the retaining wall as they come down here in front of us. And again, it is not a straightaway here in front of us, but rather a D-shaped type of oval. And so there is no actual front straightaway.
One of the faster cars on the racetrack right now is Dale Earnhardt, as he has set himself to sailing down the back straightaway up the banking of turn number 3 and 4. And as you see, your leader, and there's Earnhardt. Dale has really been picking off positions, and he is not all that far behind Richard Petty, who is your third place runner. As you see the interval right there, there's Petty, and the leader's directly in front of him, and Dale Earnhardt now low on the racetrack in turns number 1 and 2. So Earnhardt, duly North Carolina driver, we said it before, he will use every resource available, uses every inch of real estate, and there are your 3 leaders as they work their way off the banking of turn 4.
Dale Earnhardt, last year's champion,
there's a
competing in only his 2nd year of competition on the Winston Grand National Circuit.
Heck of a battle for a lead right there as Yarborough again shuts the door on Bobby Allison as we check in with former 2-time Winston Cup Grand National champion Ned Jarrett on pit road.
Donnie Allison is the latest retiree. Donnie, what went wrong?
I don't know. I believe the oil pan split or something. I don't know. It's got a real bad oil leak up around the engine. And
Donnie, things didn't really go right for you here from the beginning this week.
I couldn't hear you, Ned.
I said things really didn't go right for you all week here.
No, but the car was pretty well. You know, we got behind on that first pit stop. We got caught in the pits, but you know, I can run as fast as anybody once it got even out, and you know, but maybe we'll get it straightened out.
Well, so Donnie will go out and watch his brother Bobby now and see if they can take some more of the money back to J-Town, Alabama.
Well, Bobby Allison, his brother, now running in 2nd position at this time, behind the number 27 of Cale Yarborough. Still running in 3rd place is Richard Petty. 117 laps have been completed here. The average speed of the race at this point, 114.5 miles an hour.
You know, it's too bad about Donnie Allison. He, of course, had his first major win here at Rockingham. Won the Carolina 500 back in 1968 when he was driving a Ford. So it's tough to see a driver who has had some successes here have to fall by the wayside early. Your leaders you see right there, caught up again behind some slower race traffic, but Cale Yarborough will lead the parade down the back straightaway. There's Yarborough to the high side of Tommy Gale. Right behind in the 28 is Bobby Allison. Richard Petty in the 43 just outside to the right corner of your screen. And as we talked about before, Dale Earnhardt also closing up to make it a tight 4-car battle.
And we continue to run under green here, and we'll be back with more competition from the Carolina 500 in just a moment. Bob Jenkins along with Eli Gold back at the Carolina 500. Dale Earnhardt, you can see with the structural damage on that car at the left front of it. He was involved in an incident in turn number 2 as he was about to go around Richard Petty on the high side, lost it, spun up into the outside wall and did some damage to the left front of that race car. But he came into the pit area. The sheet metal was pulled away from the tires. The tires were changed. The fuel was put into the car, and Dale Earnhardt, the defending champion of the Winston Cup Series, is back out there in competition. Your leader will be shown as Harry Gant in car number 47. Cale Yarborough is running in 2nd position with Bobby Allison 3rd. Richard Petty is 4th, and David Pearson running in 5th position.
Harry Gant, he is a driver out of Taylorsville, North Carolina, though the race car, the Race Hill Farms entry, is maintained out of the New England area, out of the state of Connecticut by Bob Johnson. And Harry Gant has had some success here. His best finish in a Winston Cup race was 2nd. He did it 3 times, including the American 500 just 1 year ago. That's the fall event here in October. So Harry Gant, your leader, we talked about him earlier. He likes to run high on the racetrack. Sometimes it suits him. And right behind him, he's got company with Cale Yarborough, Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, and David Pearson now in 5th.
It's a 2 abreast start here as the crowd rises to its feet and the green flag falls once again. Gant, Yarborough, and Allison running 1, 2, 3. The faster cars to the outside of the racetrack and the slower cars to the inside. Harry Gant at car number 47, staving off the challenge right now of Cale Yarborough, but Yarborough appears to have the faster car as they flash down the backstretch, and Cale Yarborough pulls to the inside of Harry Gant. Now going into turn number 3, it's Cale Yarborough with the line on the inside of the racetrack, and Yarborough resumes the lead and comes down to complete lap number 188. Cale Yarborough is your leader. Gant continues to run in second position with Bobby Allison third and the King Richard Petty running in fourth position.
You see as the camera pans through the infield and follows your leader, and you see the back straightaway, there is not a seat to be had here, Bob Jenkins, and that has, of course, been confirmed by the racetrack. This is the largest crowd to ever view a Winston Cup Grand National race here at this facility. Better than 45,000 fans in the grandstand area alone. There is not a single seat, the hottest ticket in Carolina here this afternoon. And these people being treated to a dandy because behind Yarborough, there are 3 cars in a flying wedge battling for second place. Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, Harry Gant. In comes David Pearson along with Neil Bonnet. So behind Cale Yarborough, 5 cars begin to barre themselves down and try and take a piece of the lead.
Here they are off of turn number 4. Yarborough continuing to hold the lead here, and the battle is for second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth position. It is Richard Petty to the inside and Bobby Allison to the outside there on the left-hand side of your screen as Richard Petty manages to get around Bobby Allison to assume second position. Allison now third, and challenging on the inside would be Pearson in car number 16. So some good racing going on here in the middle stages of this event at Rockingham. It is Petty running in second position, Allison now third, and running fourth would be the car number 16 of David Pearson.
Those cars continue to shuffle themselves around. You see Richard Petty right there. He has started 841 races now in his Winston Cup Grand National career. Number 841 is today. And he tries to bust his way free from those 3 cars you see trailing him. Bobby Allison along with David Pearson and Neil Bonnet. At this point, Richard Petty may be saying that Cale Yarborough is scooting away a bit too much for comfort. Meanwhile, behind Cale Yarborough again, the battle for third place. Likewise, a battle further back. As all around the racetrack right now, cars begin to shuffle the positions, and oftentimes you will see after a restart 193 laps now into the event.
And it is Cale Yarborough, your leader. Richard Petty running in second position, and Petty was seriously injured in a rather spectacular accident at Pocono International Raceway last year and had to miss several races. He already has a victory under his belt in 1981, having won the Daytona 500-mile race. The second place car now is Bobby Allison. Third would be David Pearson, and also the fourth position car there in the battle.
A good view to see the interval on the racetrack right now behind Cale Yarborough as he sweeps behind and beneath the cameras here. Also to note, Neil Bonnet made a nice move on David Pearson and picked up 4th spot in the running order. So as they work their way across the start-finish line now, it is going to be your leader Cale Yarborough, as you see now, staying relatively low on the racetrack. The groove has not moved up appreciably. Your second place runner is Richard Petty, as we have 1 car working his way down the banking of turn number 2 and sweeping down the back straightaway. So cars begin again to pit on the front and the back stretch.
We were in a position to talk to the leader of this race, Cale Yarborough, a couple of days ago. Let's hear what Cale had to say before the start of the race.
Well, I think the main thing you have to do here is to be able to run strong towards the end. You know, the race is 500 miles on a mile racetrack, and it gets mighty tiresome down towards the end of the race. And I think if you can be physically strong towards the end, that you'll probably have a better chance than anybody else.
Cale Yarborough in turn number 3 on the low side of the racetrack. The battle in second and third position is between Richard Petty and Bobby Allison. Richard to the high side of the racetrack as they come down to complete lap number 197. Petty with the second place position right now, with Bobby Allison right behind, and challenging in fourth position to the inside is Neil Bonnet in car number 21.
Richard Petty seems to be relatively strong right now. He works his way around the turns well. He too staying low on the racetrack. Third place, Neil Bonnet downstairs on Bobby Allison. There you see your third place battle, and Neil Bonnet wins that one. So he takes third spot away from Bobby Allison, his Hueytown neighbor. Watching still in arrears is David Pearson, who shows in 5th spot this afternoon. There's a panoramic view of a jam-packed Winston Cup racetrack here in Rockingham, North Carolina. The North Carolina Motor Speedway is second place runner Richard Petty still sets sail. He negotiates his way through traffic and still tries to chase down your leader.
And the leader, of course, Cale Yarborough here on the front stretch. Yarborough passing a slower car, the number 52, driven by Jimmy Smut-Means in turn number 1. Yarborough has pretty much dominated this race here this afternoon to this point. He started from the pole position with a speed of 140.448 miles an hour. Richard Petty continuing to run in second position. And Kyle Petty, also in car number 42, is still out there in competition here this afternoon. Petty in second, Bonnet shown in third position with Bobby Allison running fourth. David Pearson in car number 16 is running in fifth position at this time.
You talk about Cale Yarborough as we see him right there. It's almost like reading an honor roll of what has happened in Winston Cup racing over the years. Among the accomplishments, the only four-time winner of that demanding Southern 500 in Darlington. He has won a record 7 of 10 short track races back in 1976. He has won 36 super speedway wins. That puts him third on the all-time list. And if we had the time, we could just go on and on and on. But there you see Dale Earnhardt working his way, tucking in behind Buddy Baker. Both will try and work to the high side of that elegantly splattered car of number 66, the Lake Speed entry, the former national go-kart champion, Lake Speed, out of Jackson, Mississippi. Now, as they work up the high side of turn number 3, there's Buddy Baker. Right behind him, Dale Earnhardt, the Wrangler Gene Machine. Benny Parsons has hitched himself in to get the free ride as well.
This is the battle for 10th position on the racetrack, with Buddy Baker in car number 1 holding down 10th at this point. Dale Earnhardt in number 2 settles in 11th position. And then the number 15 of Benny Parsons running in 12th position.
One car slowing on the back straightaway. That's going to be Benny Parsons.
And we have a spin. We have a spin in turn number 3 to the inside of the racetrack. The car got off of the racetrack, I believe, to the inside. It involves car number 66, Lake Speed, whom we mentioned just a few seconds ago. The yellow is out.
And we were also talking about Benny Parsons. As you see, Ernie Moore, again, one of the busier men this afternoon. This is caution period number 5 as Lake Speed in the Speed Racing Enterprises car begins to limp away and back towards pit road. So Lake Speed, as a matter of fact, will remain on the Speedway. As you see your leader, Cale Yarborough, now touring the Speedway with 204 laps in arrears to the 492 that will make up the afternoon's activities. Lake Speed bringing out the caution flag. And again, we saw Benny Parsons, who began to slow rather noticeably on the backstretch, obviously to try and keep himself out of the problems that Lake Speed was encountering.
Lake Speed is making his home in Jackson, Mississippi, and we have a replay of that incident, which occurred right at the end of the backstretch as the car came off of turn number 2 in the backstretch. You can see Speed up high there on the racetrack and may have been bumped, and there was a car right there behind him that did a terrific job of avoiding him. Just great driving there and avoiding that spinning Lake Speed car.
Ricky Rudd was in that number 88, the Gatorade color car. As you see, Lake Speed now look to sweep away and somehow does not buy the inside retaining wall. He just tries to right the automobile. You see Benny Parsons went by. Likewise, Morgan Shepherd and the rest of the field. Benny Parsons was directly behind Lake Speed when Speed began the spin, as we see action on pit road now as the David Eft crew begins to service and finishes quickly on Cale Yarborough. Benny Parsons was right behind Lake Speed. And of course, the reason we talked about Benny having slowed off the pace, but an outstanding piece of driving by Ricky Rudd to stay out of harm's way.
Well, Lake Speed, as you mentioned, is a former world go-karting champion. Back in 1978, he drove in 19 Grand National races last year, finished 6 of them as the top rookie in the race. He finished 8th at Darlington, 8th at Talladega, 7th at Charlotte, before closing his rookie season last year with a 6th place finish in the LA Times 500 at Ontario, California. Lake Speed, car number 66, has brought out a most recent yellow light, yellow flag situation as he lost control coming off of turn number 2. We go down to the pit area. Here's Ned.
Harry Gant is having some sort of problem. Bob Johnson, the crew chief, is under the hood on the car. They were about to bring him in just before this caution came out. But now they get to do their work on the caution. They haven't found out exactly what is wrong with it yet. They have an oil leak on it, and they're drying the oil off, trying to see where it is coming from. Now the hood goes down. Apparently they have it fixed, so they'll send Gant back out, hopefully without losing a lap.
Well, Harry Gant was certainly one of those up in competition, in contention for the lead, and a tough break for Gant. We'll see if the car performs better now.
We were talking about Harry Gant before again, as the field is given the 1 to go indication. You see Gant just scooting up the banking. The rest of the field is not all that far behind him, so all the work being done in the confined time area of 1 lap on this 1.017 mile racetrack. And Harry Gant, who we showed earlier as the leader, and who has had some fine runs here at Rockingham, has now been relegated to the rear of that lead lap. And there you see Neil Bonnet, the number 21 Wood Brothers prepared Purelator Thunderbird. Neil Bonnet, who of course is a name that has been around Winston Cup racing for many years, but has really been thrust into the limelight the last couple with his association with the Wood Brothers, taking over a ride vacated by David Pearson. And Neil Bonnet right there, lined up double abreast again. Glenn Jarrett was inside of him and the rest of the field, and part of the amazing crowd here at Rockingham, and everybody always at every racetrack begins to stand as the field gets set for a restart.
Let's watch them here as they come down in front of us to receive the green flag on the restart. It is Neil Bonnet in 21 in the lead at this point, with Richard Petty, Bobby Allison, and Dale Earnhardt right behind. The green flag goes out. We're back to racing, and Bonnet charges into turn number 1 and opens up about a 10-car length advantage over Richard Petty in the number 43. Down the backstretch now, it's still Bonnet maintaining that lead into turn number 3 as we watch the cars back of Richard Petty. It is still Bobby Allison in 3rd and Dale Earnhardt running in 4th position. Here they come to complete lap number 210. 210 laps complete. The average speed of the race so far is 115.5 miles an hour. Neil Bonnet leads at Rockingham.
Richard Petty in 2nd, Bobby Allison feeling the heat of Dale Earnhardt in 3rd. It is going to be 4th place for Earnhardt. 5th spot now going to Cale Yarborough. David Pearson is right there in the Joel Halpern Enterprises car. He holds down 6th spot. Your leader again off the turn, still showing the way, Neil Bonnet. Richard Petty closing in a flying wedge now for 3rd spot between Bobby Allison, Cale Yarborough, and Dale Earnhardt, but now they again go single file.
Neil Bonnet, we talked about those who have competed in Indianapolis competing in this race here today, namely Johnny Rutherford and Tim Richmond. Neil Bonnet came to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway a few years ago and tried his best to work the car up to speed, could not do so, but he did pass his rookie test and was very impressive on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the 2.5-mile track at Indy. And although he has never been in an Indy 500-mile race, showed all of us who watched him that he could indeed do so. Now he's got all he can do with the stock car under him, the Grand National stock car, as he makes the car dive into turn number 3, trying to stave off the challenge of Richard Petty. Here is Neil Bonnet off of turn number 4 again, completing lap number 213. Petty in 2nd, Bobby Allison is 3rd. Running in 4th position is number 2, Dale Earnhardt, and 5th is the 27 of Cale Yarborough, who has led most of the way here this afternoon.
Neil Bonnet looking for the first time this year for a top 5 finish on a Winston Cup Grand National event. He finished out of the top 5 in the Winston Western 500 in Riverside, likewise in Daytona, likewise, of course, the Richmond event, Richmond, Virginia, where the Wood Brothers do not campaign a car. The only short track race that the Purelator car appears at is the Martinsville Speedway, Clay Earl's immaculately prepared racing facility just down the road a piece from Stewart, Virginia, at the hometown, the home base of the Wood Brothers. So Neil Bonnet looking for his first top 5, if not his first victory of this 1981 Winston Cup Grand National season. Your leader again, you see him right there, Neil Bonnet. Richard Petty right behind. Then the interval back to Bobby Allison and Cale Yarborough. So that interval at this point is very, very slim as they trail your lead automobiles again up the banking. Just 15ths of a second is the differential between your leadership. And there you have a battle for Cale Yarborough going underneath Richard Petty, so, or at least underneath Bobby Allison, we should say. So coming off turn number 4, Cale has a situation in hand.
Well, we had an opportunity to talk with Neil Bonnet before the racing activity began. We asked him what his car will be doing today on the racetrack.
We take a little bit of beat in qualifying. We can't put the gear in the car like the General Motors guys, but on race day they can't pull those gears either, so they kind of back down to our speed. And in the past, it's always shown that during the race, the car always goes right to the front and is capable of leading the race and all. So the Ford performs awful well here, and I'm looking forward to the race.
Neil Bonnet is continuing to lead here at Rockingham, North Carolina. Richard Petty right behind him. Neil Bonnet, of course, from Hueytown, Alabama. He captured 2 races last year. He won the Talladega 500 and the 500-mile race at Pocono. He ran in 22 events last year and posted top 10 finishes in 5 of them. So Neil Bonnet is showing the way here at the Carolina 500 this afternoon, but Richard Petty is not letting Neil get too far ahead as the cars go down the backstretch. And again, laps being put on some of the slower vehicles. Bonnet leading and Petty is second.
Your cars now begin to have sorted themselves out. Of course, 219 laps into the 500 miles here at this shade better than a 1-mile racetrack. So there's a good bit of the afternoon yet to go. Cale Yarborough, before, as we mentioned, had gotten around Bobby Allison and now tries to set sail to chase down your 2 leaders, Neil Bonnet and Richard Petty. And of course, as though one didn't need any further incentive to race with all the traffic you have to contend with out there, drivers oftentimes will say they would rather take the cars in close quarters. It keeps you even that more alert. It happened in the late model sportsman event here yesterday. Dave Marcus was cruising and he had a car of Harry Gant, although laps in arrears, immediately on his rear deck lid, and it kept Marcus all that more alert, and it helped him while the time away as he went on to pick up the victory in a Coca-Cola 200 race here just 1 day ago. But right here, your leadership still for Neil Bonnet as he sweeps across the line to complete lap 220.
We have talked about the weather on several occasions here this afternoon. The sun has been peeking out a couple of times, but for the most part it's overcast here in Rockingham, North Carolina. And perhaps that is a very good thing for the drivers, as during the late afternoon the sun will get into a position. They're driving right into it coming down the main stretch here, and I don't think we're going to have that problem this afternoon as it remains mostly cloudy, and of course that will also help the racetrack and mean that the track will not perhaps get as slick as it would if the sun were shining down brightly. Neil Bonnet continues to lead here, going down the backstretch, putting a lap on car number 52, Jimmy Means. We'll be back with more action from Rockingham, North Carolina in a moment. Still under yellow here at Rockingham, North Carolina, the Carolina 500. Bob Jenkins along with Eli Gold. They have been given the word that they will get the green flag next time around. The current standings: Cale Yarborough in the lead at car number 27. Darrell Waltrip in number 11 runs second, and Buddy Baker in car number 1 runs in 3rd position. 269 laps have been completed here at Rockingham. The average speed of the race at this point, 114.5 miles an hour.
Dale Earnhardt is back out of the pit area now, as he was caught in there when the signal came out for 1 to go. So Earnhardt, who is showing on the scoreboard as your 5th place runner, is again going to have to wend his way back up through traffic from the back of the pack, where he is now situated behind Tim Richmond. Pace cars on the pits, and again this fine crowd looking for a restart.
More than 50,000 here this afternoon, some of them on their feet right now to watch the restart. 222 laps to go of this Carolina 500. Cale Yarborough is in the lead. Down the backstretch, showing in 2nd position is the number 11 of Darrell Waltrip. Buddy Baker runs in 3rd place. Richard Petty is 4th, and Dale Earnhardt is running in 5th position. Retiring from the competition is Morgan Shepherd in car number 5 as the cars come off of turn number 4. Shepherd takes his car behind the wall.
Earnhardt, of course, working his way up from the back of the pack, so now running behind Richard Petty is going to be Bobby Allison. And on Bobby's rear deck lid is going to be Neil Bonnet. So those cars now, again, taking advantage of the fact that Dale Earnhardt was caught in the pits with a signal of 1 lap to go, and he tries to work his way through traffic. So up the banking of turns number 3 and 4. There are your front duo of Cale Yarborough and Darrell Waltrip behind him. Earnhardt is making a move, but he's got much real estate to negotiate.
We have had 10 different leaders this afternoon. That ties a record for the most lead changes, or most leaders that have completed at least 1 lap shown as the leader in a Carolina 500-mile race. Right now, the leader is Cale Yarborough, who has led several laps here this afternoon. And right behind him is the green and white car, the Do Crew prepared automobile of Darrell Waltrip. Off of turn number 4, the cars shoot high off of it, drift out toward the outside retaining wall, come down under the start-finish line, and complete lap number 273. Yarborough and Waltrip 1-2.
Running third is Baker, feeling the heat now from Richard Petty. Good battle for third place off the number 2 corner. It is Baker outlasting Richard Petty. So as we watch your leaders go up the banking of 3 and 4, behind Yarborough and Waltrip, Baker is in third, Richard Petty fourth, Bobby Allison is fifth. It will be Neil Bonnet showing in sixth. Back to the line, Yarborough the leader.
$400,000 in prize money the last few years for Cale Yarborough. Not exactly a small amount of money, but a tough way to earn it. As the driver's stamina here has to be tremendous with the number of laps that you have to compete in a 500-mile race here. 492 on this very demanding race course.
Where the drivers
Two
really...
cars, Yarborough and Waltrip battling for the lead, and we have a problem up in turn number 3, and that involves Dale Earnhardt.
Just takes right off for the wall again as you see the Wrangler machine come to rest, nose towards the infield. The safety inspector is right there to check with Earnhardt to make sure he is okay. But again, we've got caution displayed to the field 9th time this afternoon, and it will be the 2nd time that Earnhardt has been responsible. There, the Wrangler machine again fires. You see some of the telltale damage from not only this episode here, but the one back earlier in the race on lap 125.
Well, we'll take a replay of the accident involving Dale Earnhardt, this most recent one. The number 2 Earnhardt car getting into turn number 3, and there you can see he was sideways going into the turn, backed it up into the outside retaining wall, slid along it for several feet, and then brought the car to the inside of the racetrack on the high banks. Dale Earnhardt, the 2nd time this afternoon that he has been involved in an accident here, and it appears that they are changing the tires on that car, and he will go back out in competition. While we were away a few minutes ago, we had another accident involving Ricky Rudd in car number 88. His car was also sideways, this time in turn number 2. Rudd drove the car up into the outside retaining wall at the entrance to the backstretch, then brought the car to the inside. Ricky Rudd eliminated from competition in an accident earlier.
For those who, of course, follow Ricky Rudd, we talked about Ricky doing some of his own campaigning for a while. He also spent some time with the Junie Dunleavy team. And last year, he picked up the services of Harry Hyde for just one race, that at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the October running of the National 500, and qualified second. So Ricky Rudd this year takes over the drive vacated by Darrell Waltrip. And for those of you who are kind of figure filberts and statistically oriented, number 88, the car, and it was the 88th race of his career that Ricky Rudd took over the automobile. And there you see the problems that continue to beset the Dale Earnhardt, Doug Richard team crew car, and it's a tough break because Earnhardt has been such a competitive driver, picking up the championship honors just one season ago. And Earnhardt, of course, along with a good number of others, as we're still rather early in the season, looking for his first victory. And now, of course, you see the field coming towards the start-finish line. So Earnhardt will be going at least one lap down in the pit area right now.
Well, we take a look at some of the track records held here. Donnie Allison holds a track record for qualifying at 142.648 miles an hour. That set last year, 25.666 seconds. So the pole speed this year was about 2.2 miles an hour slower than Allison's record-setting qualifying run back in 1980. The safety car remains out on the racetrack as he leads the other cars down the backstretch. Right behind the safety car is the Harry Gant, number 47. So we have completed 278 laps, 114.5 miles an hour for an average, and we'll be back with more racing at Rockingham, North Carolina in a moment. More than 50,000 gathered here in Rockingham, North Carolina for the Carolina 500. They are about to rise to their feet to watch the restart here on lap number 282. The green is about to come out. The most recent yellow was for an accident involving Dale Earnhardt, a very interesting situation on pit road. It appears that after 2 incidents of wall contact, that car has been bent sufficiently, at least the gas intake has been bent sufficiently. They cannot get gasoline into the car, and Dale Earnhardt is going to have to pull behind the wall and call it an afternoon. It's been a tough one for Dale Earnhardt. He now is out of the race, and the green flag comes back out. Being shown as your leader is Joe Milligan in car number 75. In second position, the number 11, Darrell Waltrip. In third, Neil Bonnet. Fourth is Bobby Allison, and fifth is Buddy Baker.
There goes the move to the inside for Waltrip. Makes a bid for the lead on Randleman, North Carolina's Joe Milliken. And Waltrip going low on the racetrack has the leadership. Neil Bonnet comes along, takes the free ride on Waltrip. So the first two cars in the train, those being Benny Parsons and Harry Gant, are on the tail end of the lead lap. Your leader is going to be the 11 Dew Crew machine of Waltrip. He goes just a bit high in the turn. Bonnet had thoughts about going downstairs. Nothing there. Milliken is in third place.
The green and white car of Darrell Waltrip is in the lead at this point as the cars head for turn number 3. Waltrip formerly drove the number 88 Gatorade car, which was also green and white, and a car spinning in turn number 3.
It is going to be Richard Childress, the Winston-Salem, North Carolina driver, spins off the banking. The leaders have taken the caution as they bring it across the start-finish line. So Waltrip in the number 11 hangs on, and Benny Parsons and Harry Gant do remain on the tail end of the lead lap. Here's Childress back on his way again, but a tough spin for one of the major independent drivers on the circuit, Richard Childress.
Childress spun the car low on the racetrack, did not make contact with the retaining wall, and I believe we can see that there is some damage there to the rear of the car. I believe that some of the sheet metal is rubbing against the right rear tire. A replay of that incident now perhaps will show us what happened in the Childress accident here in turn number 3. Well, that unavailable right now. But at any rate, Richard Childress spinning out in turn number 3, bringing out the 10th caution light of the afternoon, and Darrell Waltrip in number 11 is shown as the leader.
And of course, Benny Parsons and Harry Gant, those two cars that had been on the tail end of the lead lap, will take advantage of the break. There's Childress, number 3, sandwiched between Richard Petty and Cale Yarbrough, and there you see the slow spin begins for Richard Childress. Nose first, he stomps on the binders to try and hang that car under control. He stays low, creeps up the banking, spins it around, and comes to rest out of harm's way. So Richard Childress seems to be okay. We have seen now 10 caution periods here in this afternoon's event. We have had 15 showing as the record. That, or rather 11 is the record, 1977. So this event is just one caution period shy of the existing record. Richard Childress is on pit road right now, and the field has been given the indication of 1 to go, Bob, next time they come by.
Childress from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, is a 10-year veteran of NASCAR Grand National competition. He ran in each of the 31 events during 1980, began racing in the NASCAR's Grand National East and Grand American Series, but joined the Winston Cup Tour full-time in 1973. Posted 3 sixth-place finishes in 1980 in Texas, at Riverside, and in Talladega. Down the backstretch, the procession is being led by Darrell Waltrip in number 11. The car there to the inside is the red and orange car driven by Kyle Petty. Here they come off of turn number 4, and we will get the green flag this time. As Darrell Waltrip will stand on the accelerator and resume the lead here this afternoon with Neil Bonnet right behind him. 205 laps to go here this afternoon in this 492-lap race. Waltrip is your leader with Neil Bonnet tucked in right behind him as the cars are in turn number 2 off of it down the backstretch.
Your leader's working up the banking of turn number 3. It's going to be Neil Bonnet trying to make a challenge now. It is going to be Waltrip, the leader. Neil Bonnet going second. Joe Milliken is third. Then running further back is going to be fourth place. Bobby Allison, Buddy Baker is fifth. Back across the stripe, we have your leader showing. It's going to be still Waltrip, Neil Bonnet right behind him. One car has come to a stop near the entrance to pit road, and now we have
a car spinning up in turn number 2. I believe that is Milliken in 75, is it not?
It is Joe Milliken out of Randleman, North Carolina, with a gaggle of cars closing in behind him. He spins around at the same time, and you see he just continues along. Milliken had been showing as the leader earlier, and in addition, we were commenting about the fact that Lenny Pond's car has come to a stop near the entrance to pit road, so we'll have a twofold reason here for a caution flag.
Well, the spin coming in turn number 2 and involving Joe Milliken, who was running in third position at the time. Milliken in the blue car number 75 getting sideways in the second turn and bringing the car down to the inside of the racetrack, bringing out our 10th caution flag of the afternoon. Beg your pardon, the 11th caution play of the afternoon. And here is a replay of that spin involving Milliken.
And look at the company he'll have quickly as Kyle Petty goes underneath. Milliken now looks, and he has got to see at this point 21 or 22 cars coming straight at him. And as Joe rights the car, an outstanding piece of driving by Joe Milliken. And of course, at the same time, your leaders raced back to the caution flag, and Neil Bonnet has picked up the leadership over your second place runner now, Darrell Waltrip. And Milliken, at the time of the spin, was running in third spot.
And Milliken brings a car into the pit area for service. I'm sure he'll be able to resume the racing activity in just a moment, and we will resume the racing activity in a moment from Rockingham, North Carolina, and the Carolina 500. Back at Rockingham, North Carolina, Bob Jenkins along with Eli Gold. And the positions have been scrambled since we talked to you last. Now Cale Yarborough, number 27, is your leader, with Neil Bonnet running in second position and Richard Petty in third. Running in fourth is Darrell Waltrip. Fifth is the number 1 car of Buddy Baker.
And as we pick up the action here at Rockingham, what had been a wide margin of an advantage for Cale Yarborough, you see, has now evaporated with 451 of 492 laps showing on the scoreboard. It is Yarborough with company. Neil Bonnet is right there. The interval is gone, and Richard Petty is watching down the back straightaway past Cecil Gordon. Outside of Kyle Petty, Neil Bonnet wants a piece of the lead. 451 laps. Bonnet has to hold on to second place. Running up on the car of Kyle Petty. Richard Petty closing as well. We've got a dandy of a finish lined up here at Rockingham with Yarborough, Bonnet, and Richard Petty in the chase.
These two cars have been battling for the lead for the last several laps, and Cale Yarborough has really shown his supremacy as far as being able to stay in the lead. Nevertheless, we expect that Neil Bonnet will make a serious challenge for the lead here in the late stages of this race. The average speed of the race is 113 miles an hour at this point. We have been slowed by 13 yellow flags, several of them for accidents, but nobody has been injured.
Also, we've got to contend with the fact that there should be a pit stop coming up for most of the leaders. I would think virtually all of them inside of the next 17 or 27 laps. In that 10-lap range, we should see a final change. Now Yarborough with Bonnet and Richard Petty through traffic as you see your laps remaining. It is Yarborough in that single file choo-choo train leading Neil Bonnet and Richard Petty. And at this point, the experimentation, everybody knows what they can do. They have pretty well made up their mind where they would like to make a move on a last lap should it come down to that shootout. And should things remain under green, a lot of the onus here this afternoon will shift from the drivers to the people who have been kind of faceless to this point, the pit crews. If they have to make that final change, will they go for gas only? Will they opt for gas and tires? Obviously, new tires here at Rockingham would give a car a decided edge. So a lot of strategy now as we wind our way down inside of 40 laps remaining.
We mentioned strategy in the opening of the show, and certainly that has come into play here this afternoon. Richard Petty in the number 43 car has kind of hung back in the middle portions of the race, but now he's right up there in the thick of the race running in third position. Here is Ned Jarrett in the pit area.
We just made a survey of all the top runners, and most of the drivers that are running the General Motors car said it's going to be awfully close. Even if the crew chief on Cale Yarborough's car says they will not have to stop, that they can go the rest of the way on gas. You heard Leonard Wood say that they would have to stop. So it's going to be very, very close here at the end, whether they can make it on gas. Dale Inman of the Petty crew says we're going to run it till we run out and take the gas off.
Well, of course, if we get a yellow flag situation on the racetrack, there's no question that the cars will come in for assurance gasoline. However, if we continue to run under green as we have for the last few laps, it is going to be very interesting. Now you can see a little bit of interval opening up between the first and second place cars. Yarborough with just a little bit of real estate between himself and Neil Bonnet. But right on Bonnet's tail is Richard Petty in the number 43. Those are your first three cars here with the leader, the 27 of Cale Yarborough, about to put a lap on the number 66 car driven by Lake Speed.
What's that old saying? No guts, no glory. And if you're going to roll the dice, you might as well do it right here. A good payday on the line. And you've got drivers involved here who are veterans. And you've also got veteran pit crews. Really no newcomers here in the immediate decision-making at the point. David F. running that Cale Yarborough operation. The Wood brothers in charge of Neil Bonnet, and of course Petty Enterprises. They have seen more and more races. We said for Richard Petty, this is Winston Cup race number 841 this afternoon. So they all know what they can and cannot do. Roll the dice and see what happens.
Talking about pit stops, earlier this weekend here at Rockingham, there was a pit crew competition, and the winner of that race was the crew of Neil Bonnet. They were able to change 2 tires and fuel the car in just a little over 17 seconds. So that certainly might play a part in the final few laps of this race if Bonnet does have to come in for a pit stop, and if Yarborough also has to stop for fuel. 461 laps have been completed here out of 492, so almost 30 laps remaining here as they come by to complete lap 462. It will be 30 laps to go in this 500-miler at Rockingham.
The average speed continues to escalate now to 113.5 miles an hour. That on the average, 5 miles an hour quicker than this race last year, but still a good bit in arrears to the 121 mile an hour plus set by Bobby Allison in this race back in 1979. Again, the pace has been lessened because of 14 caution periods, as there's Bobby Allison threatening to go a lap down as Yarborough does tuck in front of him. So Bobby Allison and the finale in its current structure for that Pontiac Le Mans, now down a lap to your leader, Cale Yarborough.
Bobby Allison wanted so much to win this race here today because he feels he will be at a decided disadvantage next race because the structure of the car will be changed. But he has not been in a competitive situation since the early going of this 500-mile race, and now has gone a lap down to the leader.
Good
and
battle.
Richard Petty apparently has gone around Neil Bonnet. So Richard Petty now going into turn number 1, dives to the inside and goes around Neil Bonnet. So it's now Yarborough, Petty, and Bonnet with Richard setting his sights on the leader.
And only 28 laps remaining in this one, and it's phenomenal how these drivers can all be in a big, big bunch as they work their way close to 500 miles.
Let's go to the pit area.
Neil Bonnet has run out of gas. Apparently, the wood club is ready to bring him in right now. They thought he could go a little bit farther. He's going to slide the crossways, coming into the pits. He came in too fast. So Neil Bonnet is losing a lot of extra time here by locking the brakes. Coming in too fast, they put gas in it, now send him on his way. But a much longer pit stop than what won them that pit stop competition here earlier.
What a situation here. More dramatics at Rockingham, North Carolina. Neil Bonnet in the number 21, you can see standing on the accelerator, trying to get back there out on the racetrack in competition. But he lost precious time as he came into the pit area too hard, spun the car at his pit area and lost precious seconds. And now it's a race between Yarborough and Richard Petty.
And as a matter of fact, Yarborough is trying to barrel down on Neil Bonnet.
Here comes Yarborough into the pit area. Yarborough is making a stop. The leader is coming into the pit area. Let's watch this pit stop here as now Richard Petty jumps into the lead. Will Petty have to stop in the late stages of this race? We'll answer that in a few seconds, but right now let's watch the refueling of the Cale Yarborough car. Fuel only, and he's out in a very hurry. Back down to Ned Jarrett.
Well, Yarborough's crew chief, David Ibb, told us they would not have to stop, and here he is already in. Dale Inman said they were going to run their car, and it runs out of gas. That's the car number 43 being driven by Richard Petty.
Unbelievable racing here in Rockingham. Just phenomenal. 469 laps now showing of the 492. Gas only for Neil Bonnet. Gas only for Cale Yarborough. Richard Petty at the point right now. Final race under the tutelage of Dale Inman. Would it be a victory here for Richard Petty? It's indeed a guess right now. Somebody's going to take a chance.
Well, Richard Petty now in the lead in the number 43 car, but will he have to stop for fuel? That is the question we'll answer in just a few minutes. Petty brings the car off of the second turn down the backstretch. Richard Petty is your leader here at the conclusion of 470 laps. We've only got 22 to go. Tough luck for Neil Bonnet in the number 21 car as he came in too fast for the pit stop, and also some rather tough luck for Cale Yarborough. He had to stop also. It certainly will be tough luck if Richard Petty does not have to make a final stop. Also into the pit area at this time is Bobby Allison in the 28, who got lapped just a few seconds ago.
Nobody feels worse, though, than Neil Bonnet. He would hate to have that situation explode as it did to him on pit road. Right now, Richard Petty, as you see, just tooling along right now. You saw Neil Bonnet directly in front of Richard Petty. So Neil is at this point on the tail end of that lap, and Richard trying to just keep Neil Bonnet in his sights. 472 down. That makes it 20 laps remaining here at Rockingham this afternoon. Richard Petty, a 6-time Carolina 500 winner and a 10-time Rockingham winner. There are the standings as we wind our way down.
Darrell Waltrip has moved back into second position. Cale Yarborough is in third. Bonnet maintains fourth position. And Buddy Baker in the number 1 is running fifth right now. Petty out in turn number 1 apparently is about to put a lap on the 5th place car, because that is Buddy Baker in number 1. Petty moves to the outside of Baker down the backstretch and does go around the 5th place car unofficially. Buddy Baker is a lap down in 5th position, so now there are only 4 cars on the lead lap. Petty, Waltrip, Yarborough, and Bonnet.
Interval between first place Petty and second place Darrell Waltrip is better than 13.5 seconds right now.
As you can see, Richard Petty, although he holds many records, is second on the Super Speedway win list. This is considered a super speedway because of the high banking. It isn't nearly as long as some of the other super speedways. In Daytona, 2.5 miles. This a little over 1 mile. Nevertheless, it's considered a super speedway, and Richard Petty appears well on his way to chalking up another win on the super speedways of the South United States.
Well, Richard Petty just a couple of short weeks off his 7th Daytona 500 victory, and you'd think that is impressive. Nobody else has won it more than 2 times. So Petty has won 7, a 7-time Winston Cup Grand National champion. And Richard Petty now with the scoreboard showing 476. As we see Waltrip better than 13 seconds in arrears as we had the clock on him just a couple of laps ago.
And the 5th place car, Buddy Baker, pulls into the pit area. What we need right now is a yellow flag situation. Certainly nothing that involves an accident, but perhaps a piece of debris on the racetrack that would bring out the yellow and allow these cars to bunch up. If we don't get a yellow, it looks like that Richard is going to be well on his way to victory here this afternoon.
At this point, of course, though, when somebody has gone this far in the race and has earned this kind of a situation, you hate to see anything of any kind come between himself and a victory that has certainly been hard-earned. That Petty pit area, everybody just standing and watching those blue and red clad figures all looking on.
Among those in the pit area, our man, Ned Jarrett.
We're standing by in the pit area. We've asked Dale Memon if they're going to stop. He says, I don't know. We're still going to run out of gas. They are ready just in case he has to coast into the pit, but they're going to try to run him all the way.
Well, this is going to be an interesting situation. Does Richard Petty have enough fuel to last the race? They're going to run it till the car runs out and take a chance that it'll be the complete 500-mile distance. We've completed 478. We have now 479. We have 13 laps to go. So Richard Petty now with the lead will try to stretch those final 13 miles out of that car and come home a winner here this afternoon.
We've got a clock on Richard Petty as we look at the STP pits, the Petty Enterprise pit area. Everybody looking on. They're charting gasoline, checking lap times. We are doing lap times as well right here as Petty flashes by that lap in a flat 27 seconds. 27 seconds, so it is about a second behind the pole speed set by Cale Yarborough. And when you have a 13-second lead over second place, maybe back off the wick just a little bit to try and conserve some fuel if there's a question. There's second place runner Waltrip.
And the car immediately ahead of the leader, Richard Petty, is the 21, driven by Neil Bonnet. There it is. Petty about to put a lap on the 4th place car here this afternoon. Neil Bonnet, who challenged for the lead most of the afternoon and ran into some terrible luck at the last pit stop when he came in too hot, had to get on the brakes, partially spun the car in his pit area. That cost him precious time and dropped him back to 4th position. He's about to go a lap down to the leader, Richard Petty. Now a little bit of sunshine peeks through this North Carolina sky and presents a serious challenge to the drivers as they head for turn number 1. It's shining right in their face.
You saw Dale Inman looking on so very pensively in his final race as his final race with the Winston Cup. Richard Petty Enterprises moves on to join the Australian crew. Some impressive statistics, try these. Richard Petty, 193 career wins, 49 on the super speedways. That is second on the all-time list. He has won this race 6 times. He has run at this track and won 10 times. So the man knows his way around Rockingham, North Carolina. and right now inside of 10 laps, 9 now remaining.
And it appears that we're not going to have a nose-to-tail victory here, at least at this point. Waltrip there in car number 11 in second place is about a half a lap behind. And then there is quite a bit of distance between the second and third place car. The third place car driven by Cale Yarborough. As Richard Petty moves off of the second turn, he puts another lap on the number 99 Uno, driven by Tim Richmond. The third place car is Cale Yarborough, number 27. Cale led many, many laps in this race, but has now settled back into third position and does not appear to be in a challenging position at this point.
I would dare say Neil Whiting has long since finished in the Petty pits. They are probably now munching on knuckles as people are looking on again, charting gasoline, charting Richard Petty's progress. The scoreboard shows 485 as Buddy Baker is lapped again, now going 2 laps in arrears as Baker in the number 5 position, car number 1.
There's the fourth place car of Neil Bonnet, the one we talked about just a few minutes ago. Neil has driven a tremendous race here this afternoon, has been very competitive on the Speedway. Unfortunately, it was the pit bug that bit him to cause him to lose precious time in the pit area just a few laps ago. Neil Bonnet in fourth place in car number 21. Still, the leader continues to be Richard Petty as he moves the car to the high side of the racetrack in turn number 4. Now brings it down to the inside and moves past us here on the front stretch. Richard Petty completes lap number 487. We have 5 more laps to go in the Carolina 500 at Rockingham.
Again, the clock on Richard Petty as we'll stop at midway down the back chute. He is still turning the track at an exact 27 seconds, so he has not wavered at all from the timing we had for Richard about 9 or 10 laps ago.
Richard Petty started this race in third position, qualifying at an average speed of 140.040. He started third, is in the lead at this point. Meanwhile, the crew chief, Dale Inman, continues to anxiously wait to see whether or not that car has enough gas to go the distance. You can see him stop a step down from his higher perch, and perhaps Petty is coming into the pits. The crew is readying itself. Let's see if he does as he comes off turn number 4. Yes, Richard Petty, the leader, is coming in for a fuel stop. It'll be a very short stop. They'll get just enough gasoline in that car for it to complete the next 4 laps. There are only 4 laps. Ed Jarrett is in the pits.
Petty, the car died. He had to coast into the pits, but they quickly got him restarted. Now he's going down pit road, not running at full speed, though. The car won't pick up. Now he gets it going again. Maybe he's going to be okay.
It was a very slow start from the stop in the pit area of Richard Petty. You can see him move that car up the bank. He took 5.3 seconds on the pit stop, but it was a precious 5.3 seconds. And now the number 11 of Darrell Waltrip has moved into the lead here at the Carolina 500, completing lap number 489.
Waltrip never a winner here at Rockingham. You saw Richard Petty, as Ned said, couldn't get himself going. Slow coming out of the pits. He now works. Petty does into turn number 1 and 2, but there is the leader in the Dew Crew car. Darrell Waltrip, Franklin, Tennessee, under the watchful eye of Junior Johnson. And let me tell you, if Waltrip is able to pull this one out, it is going to be quite the afternoon. White flag here for Waltrip.
His final lap around this 1-mile track in Rockingham. Let's follow him around. Darrell Waltrip started this race in 4th position beside Richard Petty in the second row. Unfortunately, Richard Petty did have to stop for fuel in the late stages of the race, giving the lead to Darrell Waltrip. And Waltrip now is about to win. There is Richard Petty, who is running in 3rd position.
It's been the lucky weeks. Last week winning at Richmond, and right here at Rockingham, Darrell Waltrip wins again, makes it 2 in a row, winning after Richmond last weekend and again here this afternoon.
Tremendously exciting finish to this 500-mile race at Rockingham with Darrell Waltrip, who played it cool and laid back in 2nd position, watching Richard Petty run out of fuel. And then when Petty moved into the pit area, Waltrip went into the lead and maintained it for the final 3 laps to pull off the victory here this afternoon. Unofficially finishing in 2nd position, the number 27 of Cale Yarborough. Finishing in 3rd position was Richard Petty in car number 43. What a day of racing after 500 miles, a tremendous finish.
Why is anybody surprised? I don't know. This kind of racing goes on week after week on the Winston Cup Tour. You see Waltrip waving and accepting the accolades of the Dew Crew. Everybody piling in and piling on top of that car, immaculately prepared by Junior Johnson. And there is going to be some kind of celebration tonight for those people.
Well, it's a disappointing afternoon for several people, including Neil Bonnet in 21, who came into the pit area and partially spun. A disappointing afternoon for the King, Richard Petty, in number 43, who was well out into the lead by almost a half a lap, but had to come into the pit area in the final 3 laps for fuel, giving up the lead to Waltrip. Petty finishes in 3rd position.
What a day one has got to feel for Dale Inman and that Petty Enterprise operation. After 23 years, one of the most successful marriages on the stock car circuit will come to an end as Inman joins the Osterland Enterprises team. And there's the breakdown of the Richard Petty pit right now as they begin to break down the equipment, put things back, and move on to the next event in Atlanta. What a day. Meanwhile, celebration as Darrell Waltrip has, in addition to all that horsepower, he has about 14 people power right now pushing that car towards victory lane.
The crew dressed in green and white pushes the car to the victory lane celebration. That is the trophy that Darrell Waltrip will be receiving here this afternoon for winning the Carolina 500. Darrell Waltrip in car number 11 has pulled off the victory here this afternoon. Unofficially, the average speed of the race was 114.4 miles an hour, slowed by some 13 yellow flags. The Waltrip car is in the victory lane. We'll be back for the celebration in just a moment. The very dejected Richard Petty has exited his race car now. Unfortunately, he lost this race because of a fuel problem. He had to settle for 3rd position. There you can see the King walking very dejectedly back in the pit area. Petty finishes in 3rd position. Cale Yarborough winds up in 2nd. And the winner, Darrell Waltrip, down in victory lane. So is Ned Jarrett.
And he acts a little bit tired, are you, Darrell?
I'm flabbergasted.
Are you surprised to see yourself in victory lane?
I didn't know we were leading the race, and Junior came on the radio and said, "Run like hell," you know, and I thought he meant maybe for a spot or something, you know. Had no idea it was for the win. I owe it everything to the crew. They did everything. It's unbelievable.
You had to be running on fumes there at the end.
It was sputtering, you know, and I thought it was just maybe a broken valve spring or something. Didn't even think about gas.
Well, 2 in a row. You won last week at Richmond, and then here at Rockingham, you got it going now with this new crew.
Like I said, Ned, I owe it all to the Mountain Dew pit crew and Junior Johnson. They just did a fabulous job for me. I can't say enough for them.
Well, here's a fella that is surprised and happy and all the things that goes along with being in victory circle at a NASCAR race.
Can you believe that? He won the race and didn't know that he was in the lead.
Maybe the good psychology for Junior Johnson. Don't tell the driver all that goes on. Just let him keep running. Somehow, you got to think that Darrell Waltrip is just living that good life or something, because things have really fallen so well for him of late. The fine show in Richmond last week, and here today, a survival of the fittest. And it's Darrell Waltrip, as you see, the victory and celebration, and what a day for the Dew crew.
Well, a cold cloth being applied to the forehead of Darrell Waltrip as he celebrates the victory here at Rockingham, North Carolina. The unofficial rundown shows that Waltrip was the winner, of course, with Cale Yarborough finishing 2nd. Richard Petty finishes 3rd. 4th place went to the number 21 of Neil Bonnet, and finishing 5th unofficially, 1 lap down, was Buddy Baker. Once again, we go down to Ned Jarrett.
Well, with a big smile on her face is Darrell's wife, Stevie. Were you surprised to see him in victory lane?
Well, yes and no. I knew that the car and the crew were capable of winning. I just didn't know if we had enough gas to go. And Junior and Harold and I kept talking about gas mileage and were we going to be able to. And 3 laps before the end of the race, the car started missing, and really he ran out of gas with 3 laps to go. So we were just real fortunate to finish the race.
Stevie, what do you do in a time like that? I know that you work in the pits and keep track of laps and all like that, but do you sit there with your fingers crossed and all the other good wishes?
I really do. I get really tense with about 10 laps to go when there's a good possibility that we could win.
Now this has to make Darrell a lot easier to live with.
He's been easy to live with since we started living with Junior Johnson.
Okay, there's another big smile that helps to tell the story here in Victory Lane.
Well, she was tense. All of the fans here, I'm sure, were tense. We were tense in the broadcast booth as we watched the final few laps of this race develop, with Petty heading to the pits with 2 laps to go, relinquishing the lead to Darrell Waltrip, who went on to win. Back with more at Rockingham in just a moment. The final results of the Carolina 500. The winner, Darrell Waltrip, finishing in 2nd position, Cale Yarborough, and 3rd was Richard Petty. Well, Eli, we have seen a lot of close racing on our ESPN telecasts of auto racing last year, but this one was not necessarily a close race, but the dramatics were unbelievable.
I think somebody is going to have to dig down to the grab bag and find some new adjectives, because great, unbelievable, remarkable, all of those may come up just a bit short here today. You're talking about some of the top teams, the top cars, the outstanding drivers in Winston Cup racing. And again today, I guess the logo and the claim of the most competitive brand of racing anywhere has really been upheld by NASCAR. The finish was it was remarkable. It was, due to the lack of a better term, when it comes down after 500 miles to a situation of gasoline, strategy. One pit crew says one thing, another says another. Neil Bonnet having trouble in the pits there. It all comes down to the final couple of laps. So what a day it was. Celebrations here in front of a crowd of better than 50,000 on hand. A totally sold out Rockingham Speedway. What a day.
The word strategy keeps popping up. We mentioned that in the open. We mentioned it several times during the running of the race. We have to mention it again here in the close.
You talk about strategy. It worked for the Pettys in Daytona when they, through the heat of the battle, decided to take just gasoline and no tires, and it works here again this afternoon. Some crew chiefs, as you heard Ned Jarrett report, said, yes, we have to make a stop for gasoline. Others says, no, we'll try and make the luck and try and roll the dice and go with it. When all came down, push to shove, everybody came in to make that stop. But when all was said and done, it was that big victory for Darrell Waltrip. He professed to be totally amazed himself at finding himself being ushered towards victory lane, and if that was the case, it makes for quite a topping on the cake for Waltrip here this afternoon.
We saw guardrails torn away here today. We saw several cars damaged badly. No driver injuries, a great credit to the NASCAR safety regulations.
Of course, safety is a major factor. We saw in the recent days some of the most outstanding driver reactions to problem situations. Some cars that go in every which direction in Daytona, problems in Richmond, and again here 14 times, if I'm not mistaken, this afternoon. Everybody gets up, dusts themselves off after a wild ride, and goes on back to their business. So again, a tribute to the safety factors built into these Winston Cup Grand National cars. But what can you say about Darrell Waltrip? It is seemingly that marriage made in heaven. People talked about the All-America team, whatever. Junior Johnson and Waltrip now winning 2 races in a row, last week in Richmond and here again this afternoon.
Again, the finish, Darrell Waltrip, your winner, Cale Yarborough second. The very dejected pit crew of Richard Petty finishes in 3rd position after Petty appeared to be well on his way to victory, but had to stop for gasoline. We have several more Grand National races on our ESPN schedule this year. We hope you'll be back for each and every one of those. For now, Bob Jenkins for Eli Gold. So long, everyone, from Rockingham, North Carolina. This has been a presentation of ESPN, your total sports network.